The Tholian commander Willa never imagined a human would save her life. As alarms blare through the colony ship, she grips her command console, glaring at the approaching Earth vessel. The ship's distress call, sent mere minutes ago, brought a swift response from humanity's Space Defense Force. It's the last thing Willa wants. 10,000 Tholian refugees crowd the decks below, fleeing their dying homeworld. Now, their salvation lies in the hands of a species Willa has grown to despise. The irony isn't lost on her as she watches the USSF Horizon draw near, its sleek form a stark contrast to the Tholians' battered craft. "Arm weapons," Willa orders, her crystalline body vibrating with tension. Her crew hesitates, acutely aware of their dire situation. The ship shudders, another system failing. Oxygen levels plummet as life support falters. Temperature gauges spike, the heat rising to levels dangerous even for the silicon-based Tholians. Aboard the Horizon, Lieutenant Billy Clark assesses the situation. The Tholian ship's hostile stance doesn't escape his notice, but neither does its critical condition. He formulates a plan, risky but necessary. "Prepare for EVA," he commands his team. "We're going in." Willa watches the humans suit up through long-range scanners. Her hatred intensifies, memories of past conflicts fueling her suspicion. She prepares to repel boarders, even as her ship crumbles around her. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rocks the colony ship. Coolant systems rupture, triggering a cascade of failures. Hull breaches appear across the vessel's surface, exposing entire sections to the merciless vacuum of space. Hundreds of Tholians die instantly, their crystalline bodies shattering in the cold void. Thousands more face imminent death. In the command center, Willa fights to maintain control as the air rushes out. Emergency force fields flicker, struggling to contain the breach. Through the chaos, she spots movement outside. The human rescue team launches from the horizon, propelling themselves towards the disintegrating Tholian ship. Billy leads the charge, navigating through debris and radiation. His team's mission: manually override the Tholian airlock, deliver supplies, and attempt repairs. It's a long shot, but it's the refugees' only hope. As he approaches, Billy spots a figure through a gaping hole in the hull. The alien form struggles against the vacuum, its crystalline structure already showing signs of stress. With a jolt, he recognizes the Tholian commander. In that moment, Billy makes a decision that will change everything. He alters course, thrusters firing as he aims for Willa. The Tholian commander who, moments ago, was ready to destroy him and his crew, now becomes his primary objective. Willa sees the human approaching, confusion replacing hatred in her alien mind. As her world literally falls apart around her, she faces a choice: trust the very being she's despised or perish along with her people. Billy reaches out, his gloved hand extending towards the Tholian commander. In the silent vacuum of space, two vastly different beings connect, their futures suddenly, inexorably intertwined. Billy's gloved hand closed around Willa's crystalline form, the contact sending a shockwave through both beings. For a moment, time seemed to stand still in the vacuum of space, their vastly different physiologies united by a single, desperate act. The Tholian commander's alien mind reeled, struggling to process the reality before her. The very human she had been prepared to destroy now risked everything to save her. As Willa's consciousness wavered, Billy's suit's sensors detected the rapid deterioration of her crystalline structure. "Hold on." Billy's voice crackled through his helmet comm. "I'm getting you out of here." With practiced precision, Billy activated his suit's advanced grappling system. Magnetic anchors shot out, securing him to the hull of the disintegrating Tholian ship. The debris field around them intensified, fragments of the colony vessel spinning off into the void. Billy's hand steadied as he raised the plasma torch, its blue flame erupting in a silent blaze against the backdrop of stars. He began cutting through the damaged metal of the command center, each movement calculated and efficient. Willow watched, her crystalline eyes reflecting the torch's glow. The sound of tearing metal reverberated through her structure, competing with the cacophony of alarms still blaring within the failing ship. With a final burst from the torch, Billy breached the hull. He propelled himself into the command center, immediately assessing the critical situation. The atmosphere was rapidly venting, and Willow's form showed signs of extreme stress, hairline fractures spreading across her surface. Without hesitation, Billy activated his suit's emergency life support system. A shimmering bubble of breathable atmosphere enveloped them, momentarily stabilizing the environment. "Commander," Billy addressed Willa, his voice steady despite the chaos. "I need to move you. It's not going to be comfortable, but it's our only chance." Willa, unable to respond verbally, pulsed with a faint light, a silent acknowledgement. Billy carefully lifted her, acutely aware of her fragility. He secured her to his suit using specialized tethers, each designed to accommodate alien physiologies without causing further harm. As Billy prepared to leave, a violent tremor shook the ship. A secondary explosion ripped through the vessel, the force of it nearly throwing them both against the fractured hull. "Mayday, mayday," Billy shouted into his comm. "Command center critically compromised. Beginning emergency evac with Tholian commander. Need immediate assistance for remaining crew and refugees." Major Sarah Coleman's voice crackled through the comm. "Copy that, Lieutenant. We're working on stabilizing the ship's aft sections, evacuating as many as we can. Get yourself and the commander to safety." Billy maneuvered through the collapsing corridors, Willa secured tightly to his chest. Flames erupted around them, feeding on the last pockets of oxygen. The heat seeped through Billy's suit, sweat beading on his brow as he pushed forward. They emerged into open space. The full scale of the disaster laid bare before them. The Tholian ship was breaking apart, great chunks of it spinning off into the void. Escape pods jettisoned in all directions, each carrying desperate refugees. Billy engaged his suit's propulsion system, carefully navigating through the debris field. He dodged jagged metal and pockets of intense radiation, constantly adjusting their trajectory. Willa's consciousness faded in and out. In her lucid moments, she marveled at the human's unwavering focus. The hatred that had fueled her for so long began to crumble, replaced by a grudging respect. As they approached the horizon, Billy's calm crackled to life. Captain James Foster's voice cut through the static. "Lieutenant, we're deploying emergency force fields, creating a safe zone for Tholian escape pods. Prepare for retrieval." Billy acknowledged the order, his eyes fixed on the horizon's sleek form growing larger in his field of vision. Victory seemed within reach. Suddenly, a massive shadow loomed over them. A colossal piece of the Tholian ship's hull, torn free in the chaos, hurtled towards their position. Billy's suit computer calculated their trajectory, flashing a warning. Impact imminent. In that fraction of a second, Billy made his choice. With a swift movement, he detached Willow from his suit. Using the last of his propellant, he launched her clear of the debris field, towards the safety of the horizon's tractor beam. The action left Billy directly in the path of the oncoming hull fragment. He closed his eyes, bracing for impact. "Billy!" Major Coleman's panicked voice filled his helmet. "What are you doing?" Billy's vital signs spiked on the horizon's monitors, then abruptly flatlined as the debris engulfed his position. The bridge of the horizon erupted in a flurry of activity. "Search and rescue teams, launch immediately," Captain Foster commanded, his voice tight with urgency. "Find Lieutenant Clark." As chaos unfolded on the bridge, Willa found herself in the horizon's medical bay. The stark, sterile environment was a sharp contrast to the destruction she had just witnessed. Human medical staff worked feverishly around her, their strange forms blurring as she drifted in and out of consciousness. When Willa fully regained awareness, the reality of what had transpired hit her with full force. The human Billy had sacrificed himself to save her, an act she would have considered impossible mere hours ago. Despite her weakened state, Willa struggled to rise. A human doctor gently restrained her. "Commander, please. You need to rest," the doctor urged. Willa's crystalline form vibrated with intensity. "No," she managed to communicate. "Must. Help. Find. Billy." Captain Foster entered the medical bay, his face etched with concern. He approached Willa's bedside, studying the alien being with a mix of curiosity and respect. "Commander," he addressed her formally, "I understand you want to help, but the situation out there is critical. We're still rescuing your people, and the search for Lieutenant Clark is ongoing." Willa's alien eyes locked onto Foster's. In that moment, an understanding passed between them. The fate of thousands hung in the balance, human and Tholian alike. Foster nodded, making his decision. "All right, Commander. If you're able, we could use your expertise. But I warn you, it's chaos out there." As Willa rose, her crystalline body still showing signs of stress, alarms blared throughout the horizon. The rescue operation was not nearly finished, and somewhere in the debris field, Billy Clark's life hung by a thread. The unlikely alliance of human and Tholian was about to be tested in ways neither species could have imagined. The bridge of the horizon buzzed with frantic activity as Captain Foster barked orders, his face a mask of purpose. "Launch all available search and rescue teams," he commanded. "Priority 1 is locating Lieutenant Clark." Major Sarah Coleman sprang into action, her team assembling with practiced efficiency. As they prepared to deploy, Willa's crystalline form shimmered with purpose. "I must join the search," she insisted, her alien voice resonating through the medical bay. The human doctor protested, but Captain Foster intervened. "If you're able, Commander, we could use your expertise." Willa nodded, her structure stabilizing as she focused on the task at hand. She followed Foster to the bridge, where chaos reigned. Screens displayed the devastation outside, the disintegrating Tholian ship, escape pods scattering like seeds in the wind, and the ominous debris field where Billy had last been seen. "Our sensors aren't calibrated for Tholian technology," Foster explained, frustration evident in his voice. Willa stepped forward, her crystalline fingers dancing across the unfamiliar human controls. "Allow me," she said, adjusting the parameters. The screens flickered, then sharpened, revealing new data streams. "There," Willa pointed. "Focus on this energy signature. It matches the human's environmental suit." Major Coleman's voice crackled over the comm. "Copy that, Horizon. Adjusting our search pattern now." Outside, specialized debris-clearing drones swarmed the wreckage, methodically scanning and cataloging each piece. Coleman's team, equipped with maneuvering packs, navigated the treacherous field. As the search intensified, a new alarm blared through the horizon's bridge. Chief Engineer Marcus Thompson's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim. "Captain, we've got a problem," he reported. "The Tholian ship's reactor core is destabilizing. If it blows, it'll take out everything in a parsec radius." Foster's teeth gritted. "Estimated time to critical?" 2 hours, maybe less," Thompson replied. The captain turned to Willa, who nodded gravely. "He's correct. Our reactors were never designed to endure this level of stress." Foster faced an impossible choice: continue to search for Billy or divert all resources to preventing a catastrophic explosion. After a moment's hesitation, he made his decision. "Thompson, take a team and do what you can to stabilize that core," he ordered. "Coleman, keep searching for Clark. We're not giving up on him." As the Horizon's crew raced against time, an unexpected message came through. "Dr. Alara, a Tholian scientist known for a controversial stance on human relations, requested permission to board. "I have information that may help," she transmitted. "There's a device, experimental Tholian technology. It creates localized subspace bubbles. If your lieutenant activated it, he might still be alive," Foster finished, hope rekindling in his eyes. With this new information, the search took on renewed urgency. Major Coleman adjusted her team's sensors, scanning for subspace anomalies amidst the debris. Meanwhile, on the disintegrating Tholian ship, Thompson and his engineering team worked feverishly to stabilize the reactor core. They moved through the alien corridors, their environmental suits the only protection against the extreme heat and radiation. "We need to reroute the coolant flow," Thompson shouted over the roar of failing systems. "Jensen, take the left conduit. Martinez, the right." As the engineers battled the laws of physics, a group of young Tholian refugees approached Captain Foster on the Horizon's bridge. Their crystalline forms vibrated with nervous energy. "We want to help," their leader stated, his voice a chorus of harmonics. "We can withstand conditions that would kill humans instantly." Foster exchanged a glance with Willa, who nodded her approval. "Very well," the captain agreed. "Major Coleman, you have some new team members joining your search." The young Tholians launched into space, their bodies glittering against the backdrop of stars and debris. They moved with fluid grace, penetrating areas of the debris field too dangerous for human searchers. As the reactor core reached critical levels, Thompson's voice crackled over the comm, strained and desperate. "Captain, we're losing containment. We need more time." At that moment, Major Coleman's team detected a faint subspace anomaly near the outer edge of the debris field. "Possible contact," she reported, her voice tight with anticipation. Foster's eyes darted between the reactor readouts and the anomaly's coordinates. Every second counted. "Coleman, push forward," he ordered. "Thompson, hold that core together for just a few more minutes." The rescue team surged toward the anomaly, human and Tholian alike, united in their desperate mission. The reactor's radiation levels spiked dangerously, bathing the area in a sickly glow. As they closed in on the anomaly, a small, shimmering bubble became visible amidst the wreckage. Inside, barely discernible, floated a familiar form. "We've got him," Coleman shouted. "Initiating retrieval now." The team worked quickly, maneuvering the subspace bubble onto their shuttle. As they began their return journey, the Tholian ship's reactor reached its breaking point. "Brace for impact," Thompson yelled as he and his team scrambled for safety. The reactor detonated, sending a shockwave rippling through space. The Horizon shield strained against the onslaught, while Coleman's shuttle raced against the expanding wave of destruction. On the bridge, Foster, Willa, and Dr. Alera watched in tense silence as the shuttle neared the Horizon's protective field. The shockwave loomed behind them, threatening to engulf them all in a final cataclysmic blast. Time seemed to slow as the shuttle raced towards the Horizon's protective field, the destructive wave nipping at their heels. "Shields at maximum," Foster ordered, his fingers tightening as he gripped the command chair. The shuttle breached the Horizon's shields milliseconds before they snapped back to full strength. The shockwave slammed into the starship, rattling it violently. Alarms blared as the ship's structural integrity strained under the assault. "Report," Foster barked, steadying himself against the sudden turbulence. "Shields holding at 62%, the tactical officer responded. "Minor hull breaches on decks 7 and 8. Emergency force fields engaged." As the chaos subsided, all eyes turned to the view screen, where Coleman's shuttle was docking. Foster, Willa, and Dr. Alera rushed to the hangar bay, their hearts pounding with anticipation. The shuttle's doors hissed open, revealing Major Coleman and her team. Their faces were etched with exhaustion and tension. "We've got a faint life sign," Coleman announced, her voice tight. "But it's weak and unstable." Dr. Alara stepped forward, her crystalline form shimmering with purpose. "We must act quickly. The subspace bubble is collapsing." Foster nodded grimly. "What do you need?" "A combination of human and Tholian energy sources," Dr. Alara explained rapidly. "It's risky, but it's our only chance to reinforce the bubble and reach Lieutenant Clark." Without hesitation, the human crew members began disconnecting power packs from their suits. The young Tholian volunteers gathered around, their bodies humming with latent energy. Dr. Alara and Major Coleman worked in perfect synchronization, assembling a makeshift energy projector from the disparate components. Human technology merged with Tholian crystals in a feat of impromptu engineering. "Ready," Coleman announced, hefting the jury-rigged device. The team moved swiftly back to the shuttle, where the faint shimmer of the subspace bubble was barely visible. Dr. Alara adjusted the projector's settings, her alien digits moving with surprising dexterity over the human controls. "Now," she commanded. A beam of energy, pulsing with both human and Tholian signatures, lanced out from the projector. It struck the bubble, which flared brightly before stabilizing. The team held their breath as the bubble's surface cleared, revealing the unconscious form of Billy Clark floating within. "His suit's compromised," Coleman observed, her voice tight with concern. "Oxygen levels critical." Dr. Alara's mind raced. "We need a temporary airlock. Force field generators, quickly." The team sprang into action, setting up portable force field emitters around the bubble. With a shimmer of energy, a makeshift airlock formed, creating a tenuous bridge between the shuttle's atmosphere and Billy's fragile sanctuary. Coleman and Dr. Alara moved in tandem, their movements precise and deliberate. They carefully maneuvered Billy's limp form through the force field, quickly sealing him in a functional environmental suit. Just as they secured Billy, alarms blared throughout the ship. Foster's voice crackled over the comm system, tight with urgency. "All teams, evacuate immediately. The reactor core is going critical." The rescue team scrambled back into the shuttle, cradling Billy's unconscious form. As they prepared for emergency departure, the hangar bay erupted into chaos. Escape pods carrying Tholian refugees streamed in, their occupants disembarking in a panic. Coleman piloted the shuttle out of the bay, rejoining the debris field now alive with deadly energy discharges. The young Tholian volunteers, their crystalline bodies glowing with exertion, used their natural abilities to deflect the worst of the radiation and debris. "Horizon, this is Coleman," the major called out, her voice strained as she navigated the treacherous obstacle course. "We have Lieutenant Clark, but his condition is critical. Request immediate medical assistance upon arrival." Foster's reply was drowned out by a massive energy surge that rocked the shuttle. The Horizon's shields flared brightly as they absorbed the brunt of the blast. "Shields at 38% and dropping," the tactical officer reported, his voice tight with tension. "Another hit like that, and we're exposed." Foster's mind raced, weighing the lives of his crew against the safety of the ship and the rescued Tholians. Time seemed to stretch as he watched Coleman's shuttle approach, the reactor core's imminent detonation looming behind him. With seconds to spare, Foster made his decision. "Prepare for precision shield modulation on my mark," he ordered, his eyes fixed on the shuttle's trajectory. As Coleman's shuttle closed in, Foster counted down silently. At the last possible moment, he gave the command. "Now!" The Horizon's shields dropped for a fraction of a second, allowing the shuttle to slip through before snapping back to full power. No sooner had they reformed than another violent pulse from the reactor core struck the ship. "Maximum warp," Foster bellowed. "Get us out of here." The Horizon's engines roared to life, propelling the ship away from the dying Tholian colony vessel. Behind them, the reactor core finally breached, unleashing a cataclysmic explosion that sent a shockwave hurtling through space. The starship shuddered as it rode the edge of the blast wave, its structural integrity pushed to the limit. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if the horizon might be torn apart. Then, with a final burst of speed, they broke free, the shockwave dissipating in their wake. As the immediate danger passed, the focus shifted to the medical bay, where Billy Clark fought for his life. Human doctors worked alongside Tholian healers, their diverse knowledge and techniques combining in a desperate effort to save the young lieutenant. In the corridor outside, Foster stood with Willa and Dr. Alara, their faces etched with concern and exhaustion. The successful rescue and unprecedented cooperation between their species hung in the air between them, a fragile promise of a new future. But as alarms continued to sound throughout the ship and reports of system damage and refugee concerns flooded in, it was clear that their trials were not nearly finished. The Horizon had survived, but as they began their long journey back to Earth with thousands of Tholian refugees aboard, new challenges loomed on the horizon, threatening to test the newfound alliance between humans and Tholians. Tholians aboard, new challenges loomed on the horizon, threatening to test the newfound alliance between humans and their crystalline guests. As the Horizon sped away from the devastating explosion, the ship's medical bay became a hive of frantic activity. Dr. Jonathan Hayes, the chief medical officer, burst through the doors, his eyes quickly scanning the chaotic scene before him. "Status report," he barked, making his way to the biobed where Lieutenant Billy Clark lay motionless. A nurse responded, her voice tight with tension. "Life signs are critical but stable, so we're struggling to maintain his cellular integrity." Dr. Alara, her crystalline form shimmering with concern, stepped forward. "His exposure to the Tholian energy field has caused unprecedented alterations to his physiology. We must act quickly." Dr. Hayes nodded, his mind racing. "Agreed. Let's start with a targeted regenerative field to stabilize his cellular structure. Dr. Alara, I'll need your expertise on Tholian energy patterns." As the medical team worked tirelessly to save Billy's life, Captain James Foster found himself facing a logistical nightmare on the bridge. He stared at the holographic display, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Computer, current ship's population?" he asked, dreading the answer. "Current population aboard the Horizon, 9,743. The AI responded coolly. Foster's stomach twisted. The Horizon was designed for a crew of 500, not nearly 20 times that number. He turned to his first officer, Commander Sarah Chun. "We need to redirect all available power to life support systems. Shut down everything non-essential." Chun nodded grimly. "Aye. Sir, what about food supplies?" "Implement immediate rationing," Foster ordered, "and have Chief Rodriguez set up a joint human Tholian security detail. I want to stay ahead of any potential conflicts." As Foster's orders rippled through the ship, the cargo bay transformed into a makeshift refugee center. Tholian families huddled together, their crystalline bodies glinting in the dimmed lighting. Human crew members moved among them, distributing emergency rations and blankets. Suddenly, a commotion erupted near the far wall. A group of young Tholians, their forms vibrating with distress, faced off against two human security officers. "You can't keep us here," one of the Tholians shouted, his voice a dissonant chorus of harmonics. "We demand to see our elders." Security Chief Michael Rodriguez pushed through the crowd, a Tholian volunteer at his side. "What's going on here?" he demanded. The human officer explained. "Sir, they're insisting on accessing restricted areas of the ship. We've tried to explain Dash." Rodriguez held up a hand, then turned to his Tholian partner. "KRYX, can you help me explain the situation to them?" KRYX stepped forward, addressing the agitated youths in a series of crystalline vibrations. Slowly, the tension dissipated as understanding dawned. Rodriguez tapped his communicator. "Rodriguez to bridge. Captain, I recommend we establish a Tholian council to help manage refugee concerns. It'll ease the burden on our crew and help prevent misunderstandings." "Agreed." Foster's voice crackled back. "Make it happen, Chief." As the Horizon limped through space, its warp engine struggling to maintain speed, a new threat appeared on the long-range sensors. Lieutenant Commander Zara Vega, the tactical officer, frowned at her console. "Captain," she called out, her voice tight, "I'm detecting a group of ships on an intercept course. Energy signatures match known Kroloth raider vessels." Foster's blood ran cold. With weapons offline and evasive maneuvers impossible due to their fragile passengers, they were sitting ducks. "Time to intercept?" he asked, his mind already racing through options. "At current speeds, 2 hours and 17 minutes, Vega responded. Foster turned to his chief engineer. "Thompson, I need options. How can we protect this ship with limited power and no weapons?" Marcus Thompson's eyes lit up with a dangerous glint. "Sir, I have an idea. It's risky, but it might just work. We can use the Tholian tech we salvaged to create a massive energy field around the ship. If we can get the Tholians to help channel their natural abilities, we might be able to mimic the signature of a much larger vessel." Foster nodded slowly, a plan forming. "Do it. I'll coordinate with Willa to organize the Tholians." As Thompson rushed off to begin preparations, Foster opened a ship-wide channel. "Attention all hands and guests. We face a grave threat, but I believe that together we can overcome it. I'm asking for volunteers, both human and Tholian, to assist in a bold plan to protect our ship and all aboard her. Report to your section leaders for further instructions." The response was immediate. Throughout the ship, humans and Tholians alike stepped forward, ready to face the oncoming danger together. As the Kroloth raiders drew ever closer, the horizon hummed with a new energy, one of unity, commitment, and hope. In the medical bay, Billy Clark's eyes fluttered open for a brief moment before closing again. Dr. Hayes leaned in, studying the readings on the biomonitor with intense focus. "His cell structure is stabilizing," he murmured to Dr. Lara. "But these energy patterns, I've never seen anything like them." Dr. Lara nodded, her crystalline form shimmering with excitement and concern. "The implications of this transformation could be far-reaching. We must continue to monitor him closely." As the medical team continued their work, the rest of the ship prepared for the coming confrontation. In the makeshift refugee center, Willa addressed her people, her voice ringing with authority and purpose. "Our hosts have sheltered us in our time of need," she declared. "Now, we have the chance to repay that kindness. I call upon all who are able to lend their energy to this effort. Together, we will show these raiders the true strength of unity between our peoples." The Tholians responded with a chorus of harmonic agreement, their bodies beginning to glow with building energy. As humans and Tholians worked side by side to implement Thompson's daring plan, the first of the Kroloth ships appeared on the horizon's visual sensors, their predatory forms growing larger by the moment. Captain Foster stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the approaching threat. The next few minutes would determine not just their fate, but the future of human-Tholian relations. As the energy field began to form around the horizon, Foster took a deep breath, knowing that everything now hinged on their ability to maintain this fragile illusion in the face of imminent danger. Danger. As the Kroloth raiders drew ever closer, the horizon hummed with a new energy, one of unity, commitment, and hope. Suddenly, the ship's exterior began to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. Chief Engineer Thompson's voice crackled over the comm system. "Energy field activated, Captain. We're channeling the combined output now." Foster watched in awe as the view screen displayed the horizon's transformation. The once battered Explorer now appeared as a massive, formidable warship, its illusory weapons array pulsing with hardly restrained power. Kroloth vessels have halted their approach, Lieutenant Commander Vega reported, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. They're holding position at the edge of our sensor range. Foster allowed himself a small smile. Good work, everyone. Keep it up. Vega, monitor their communications. I want to know the moment they so much as sneeze. As the bridge crew maintained their vigilance, alarms blared in the medical bay. Dr. Hayes rushed to Billy Clark's biobed, where the lieutenant's body convulsed violently. We're losing him, Hayes shouted, his hands flying over the medical controls. Cellular degradation is accelerating. Dr. Alara, I need more power to the regenerative field. The Tholian doctor's crystalline form vibrated with tension. We're already at maximum output on emergency power. Any more, and we risk dash. Her words were cut off by a strangled gasp from Billy. His eyes snapped open, glowing with an eerie alien light. What in God's name? Hayes whispered, staring at the readings on his tricorder, his cellular structure. It's incorporating Tholian energy patterns. I've never seen anything like this. In the cargo bay, the strain of maintaining the massive energy field began to take its toll. Tholian volunteers collapsed one by one, their crystalline bodies dimming as they succumbed to exhaustion. Security Chief Rodriguez pushed through the panicking crowd, his voice raised above the growing chaos. Everyone remain calm. We need to clear space for the medical team. Beside him, KRYX vibrated urgently. Chief, if too many more fall, we won't be able to maintain the field. The raiders will see through our deception. Rodriguez tapped his communicator. Bridge, this is Rodriguez. We've got a situation down here. The Tholians are dash. His report was interrupted by a priority alert from the communications array. Lieutenant Sarah Chen's voice cut through the din. Captain, we're picking up a distress call. It's coming from a human mining outpost in the nearby asteroid field. They're under attack by another Kroloth raiding party. Foster's eyes hardened as he absorbed this new complication. He turned to Willa, the Tholian commander, who had taken up position next to him on the bridge. Options. Willa's crystalline form shimmered as she considered the problem. We may be able to extend our communication range using Tholian energy manipulation techniques. We could call for help from your space defense force while maintaining our current illusion. But, Foster prompted, sensing the unspoken caveat. But it would require even more power from my people, Willa admitted. Many are already at their limits. Before Foster could respond, Chief Engineer Thompson's voice came over the comm, his tone urgent. Captain, we've got a problem. The sustained use of Tholian energy is causing unexpected interactions with our warp core. If we don't address it soon, we're looking at a potential core breach within hours. Foster closed his eyes, feeling the weight of command pressing down on him. When he opened them again, his gaze was steel. Thompson, work on a solution. Chun, keep monitoring that distress call. Willa, prepare your people for the communication attempt, but don't act until I give the word. As the captain issued his orders, Dr. Hayes' voice cut through the air. Bridge, this is Dr. Hayes. Lieutenant Clark's condition has deteriorated rapidly. We've discovered a potential solution, but it's risky. We need to complete the transformation process that's begun in his cells. It could save his life, or... The unspoken alternative hung in the air between them. Do what you have to, Doctor, Foster replied, his voice heavy with the knowledge of what he was authorizing. Just then, Lieutenant Commander Vega's console lit up with a new alert. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting an unidentified ship approaching at high warp. Energy signature doesn't match anything in our database. Foster moved to the center of the bridge, his mind racing as he processed the cascade of crises converging on the horizon. The deception of the Kroloth raiders, the human miners in distress, the refugees pushed to their limits, Billy's life hanging by a thread, and now an unknown ship racing towards them. He took a deep breath, knowing that the decisions made in the next few moments would ripple far beyond the confines of their battered ship. The future of human-Tholian relations, the balance of power in this sector of space, and the lives of everyone aboard hung in the balance. "All hands," Foster called out, his voice carrying through the ship's comm system. "Prepare for imminent action. Whatever comes next, we face it together." As the crew braced themselves for the challenges ahead, the horizon continued its delicate dance of deception, a fragile bubble of hope surrounded by the vast, unforgiving darkness of space. Space. The bridge crew held their collective breath, waiting for the next crisis to unfold. Suddenly, Lieutenant Commander Vega's console erupted with a series of urgent alerts. Her eyes widened as she processed the incoming data. "Captain, the unidentified ship. It's a Tholian warship. They're hailing us." Foster's heart raced as he straightened his uniform. "On screen," he commanded, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his gut. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the bridge of the Tholian vessel. At its center stood a regal, crystalline figure that seemed to shimmer with almost unchecked power. Foster recognized the distinctive markings of high rank. "This is Admiral ZYXRA of the TSS Crystalline Vanguard," the figure announced, its voice a symphony of harmonics that filled the bridge. "We detected a distress call from a Tholian colony ship. Explain your presence here, human vessel." Foster took a deep breath, acutely aware of the precarious position they were in. "Admiral, I'm Captain James Foster of the USS Horizon. We responded to that same distress call and rescued the survivors of the colony ship. We're currently—" "Rescue?" Admiral ZYXRA interrupted, the crystalline structure of their form vibrating with skepticism. "You expect us to believe that a human ship came to the aid of Tholians?" Foster's mind raced. He needed to defuse the situation quickly before it escalated into a three-way conflict with the Kroloth raiders still lurking nearby. "Admiral, if you'll allow me to explain—" A flash of inspiration struck him. "Willa," he said, turning to the Tholian commander at his side, "would you join me in speaking with Admiral ZYXRA? Your testimony could be crucial here." Willa nodded, her crystalline form shimmering with dedication. As she moved to stand beside Foster, the captain reopened the channel to the Crystalline Vanguard. "Admiral," Foster began again, "I understand your skepticism, but I have someone here who can vouch for our actions. This is Willa, the leader of the Tholian refugees we rescued." Willa stepped forward, addressing Admiral ZYXRA in a series of complex harmonics that the universal translator struggled to keep up with. She recounted the Horizon's daring rescue operation, the sacrifices made by the human crew, and the unprecedented cooperation between their two species. As Willa spoke, Foster noticed Admiral ZYXRA's posture gradually shifting from hostile to attentive. The Admiral's crystalline structure vibrated with what Foster hoped was growing understanding. Willa concluded her impassioned account by describing Lieutenant Billy Clark's heroic actions and subsequent transformation. "The humans risked everything to save us, Admiral. They've shown us a level of compassion and alliance that I never thought possible between our peoples." A tense silence filled the air as Admiral ZYXRA processed this information. Foster held his breath, acutely aware that the next few moments could determine the fate of not just the Horizon, but potentially the future of human-Tholian relations. Before the Admiral could respond, Chief Engineer Marcus Thompson's voice cut through the silence, his tone urgent and strained. "Captain, we've got a serious problem down here. The warp core instability has reached critical levels. The protective energy field is causing dangerous fluctuations in the matter-antimatter reaction chamber. At this rate, we're looking at a potential core breach in less than an hour." Foster's mind raced. processing this new crisis even as he maintained his outward composure for the benefit of Admiral ZYXRA. He quickly formulated a plan, one that was risky but could potentially solve multiple problems at once. "Admiral ZYXRA," Foster said, his voice filled with carefully measured urgency. "I know you have no reason to trust us, but we find ourselves in a dire situation. Our ship is damaged. We're protecting Tholian refugees, and we're currently using an energy field to deter Kroloth raiders in the area." He paused, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. "I'm proposing an alliance. We need your help to evacuate the refugees and stabilize our warp core. In exchange, we're prepared to share all our data on Lieutenant Clark's transformation. This could be a breakthrough in Tholian medical science and pave the way for greater cooperation between our species." Admiral ZYXRA's form shimmered as they considered Foster's proposal. After what felt like an eternity, the Admiral spoke. "Your offer is intriguing, Captain Foster. The potential benefits to our people cannot be ignored. Very well, we will assist you." Relief washed over Foster, but he knew they weren't out of danger yet. As the crystalline vanguard moved into position alongside the horizon, extending its energy field to reinforce their illusion, Foster turned his attention to the other crises at hand. "Thompson," he called out over the comm, "I'm sending you a team of Tholian engineers from the vanguard. Work with them to stabilize the warp core. Use whatever means necessary." "Aye, Captain," Thompson replied, the sound of frantic activity audible in the background. Foster then addressed his tactical officer. "Vega, what's the status of that distress call from the mining outpost?" "Still ongoing, sir," Vega reported. "The Kroloth attack appears to be intensifying." Foster nodded grimly. "Prepare a shuttle. I want a small team ready to provide assistance without compromising our position here." He turned to his security chief. "Rodriguez, you'll lead the rescue mission. Take whoever you need, but keep it small and mobile." As Rodriguez acknowledged the order and hurried off the bridge, Foster's communicator chirped. It was Dr. Hayes from the medical bay, his voice tight with tension. "Captain, we have begun the procedure on Lieutenant Clark. His cellular structure it's unlike anything I've ever seen. The merger of human and Tholian physiology is progressing, but we're in uncharted territory here. I can't predict the outcome." "Understood, Doctor," Foster replied. "Keep me updated on any developments." As he closed the channel, Foster became acutely aware of the multiple crises converging around them. The evacuation of Tholian refugees to the crystalline vanguard was underway. Thompson and the Tholian engineers were racing against time to stabilize the warp core. Rodriguez was preparing for a dangerous rescue mission, and Billy Clark's life hung in the balance of an experimental procedure. And through it all, the Kroloth raiders lurked at the edges of their sensor range, a constant threat that could erupt into violence at any moment. Foster knew that their deception couldn't hold forever. Sooner or later, the raiders would realize something was amiss. As if on cue, the ship shuddered slightly. Vega's hands flew over her console. "Sir, the Kroloth are probing our defenses with low-power weapon bursts. Minimal damage, but our systems are already strained to the breaking point." Foster's teeth gritted as he surveyed the bridge. The next few minutes would be critical. He began issuing rapid-fire orders, preparing the horizon for the possibility of combat even as they struggled to maintain their fragile illusion. As crew members rushed to their stations and the hum of activity reached a fever pitch, Foster shared a look with Willa. The Tholian commander's crystalline form seemed to resonate with the same mix of willpower and anxiety that Foster felt. Together, human and Tholian stood side by side on the bridge of the horizon, united in their effort to navigate the treacherous waters ahead. The fate of two species, and perhaps the entire sector, hung in the balance as the cosmic dance of diplomacy, desperation, and danger played out against the backdrop of the cold, unforgiving void of space. Space. The fragile peace was shattered in an instant. 3 Kroloth Raider ships broke formation, their engines flaring as they launched a coordinated assault on the horizon. The illusory defense field flickered and wavered under the barrage, threatening to expose the true nature of the damaged vessel. Evasive maneuvers, Foster barked, his squeezing hard as he gripped the arms of his chair. The ship lurched in response, but its movements were sluggish and uncoordinated. The damage to their systems was taking its toll. On the console, the sleek forms of the Kroloth ships danced around them, their weapons leaving bright trails of energy in their wake. Each impact sent tremors through the horizon's hull, and Foster could hear the groaning of stressed metal all around them. "Shields down to 30%, Vega reported, her voice tight with tension. "Another direct hit, and we'll—" Her words were cut off as a brilliant beam of energy lanced past the horizon, striking one of the Kroloth ships. The Raider erupted in a ball of flame, quickly extinguished by the vacuum of space. "The crystalline vanguard," Willa exclaimed, her crystalline form vibrating with excitement. "They're engaging the Raiders." Sure enough, the massive Tholian warship had dropped its cloak, revealing itself in all its crystalline glory. Its weapon systems lit up the darkness of space, easily outmatching the Kroloth vessels. Within moments, the remaining Raiders turned tail and fled, leaving behind only debris and the fading glow of their engine trails. As the immediate threat passed, Foster allowed himself a moment of relief before turning his attention to the myriad other crises at hand. "Status report," he called out, his eyes scanning the bridge. Before anyone could respond, Chief Engineer Thompson's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, you're not going to believe this," he said, breathless with excitement. "We've done it. We've stabilized the warp core." Foster's eyebrows shot up. "How?" "It's incredible, sir," Thompson continued. "We integrated some of the Tholian crystal technology with our antimatter containment systems. It's not just stable, it's better than ever. Our warp capabilities have been enhanced beyond anything I've seen before." As Foster processed this unexpected turn of events, Dr. Hayes' voice cut in. "Bridge, this is medical. Lieutenant Clark is awake." Foster shared a look with Willa, both of them sensing the weight of this moment. "Go ahead, Doctor," Foster said. "Sir, it's—" "Remarkable," Hayes said, his voice filled with wonder. "Billy's physiology has changed dramatically. He seems to be able to manipulate energy fields, and his tolerance for extreme temperatures is off the charts. We're still running tests, but the implications of this are staggering." Foster nodded, his mind racing with the potential consequences of this development. "Keep me updated, Doctor. And take care of him." As if on cue, his comm badge chirped again. It was Rodriguez, reporting from the mining outpost. "Captain, we've secured the facility," he said, the sound of weapons fire audible in the background. "The miners are safe, and we're preparing for evac. These Kroloth don't know when to quit, but we're holding our own thanks to those Tholian tactics we picked up." "Good work, Rodriguez," Foster replied. "Get those people out of there and back to the horizon as quickly as possible." No sooner had he closed that channel than another one opened. This time, it was a priority communication from Earth Space Defense Force. The stern face of Admiral Elena Coleman appeared on the main view screen. "Captain Foster," she began, her expression grave, "I'm afraid your rescue operation has sparked a diplomatic incident. The Tholian Empire is viewing the presence of their citizens on your ship as an act of aggression." Foster's heart sank. He opened his mouth to explain, but Coleman cut him off. "There's no time for details now. You are to proceed immediately to Neutral Station Alpha for an emergency summit. Representatives from both sides will be waiting. The fate of those refugees and our future relations with the Tholians depend on what happens there." As the Admiral's image faded, Foster turned to find Willa already at his side. "We must go," she said, her voice resonating with urgency. "This may be our only chance to forge a true alliance between our peoples." Foster nodded, then turned to address the bridge crew. "Set a course for neutral station Alpha, maximum warp, and open a channel to the crystalline vanguard. We're in this together now." As the Horizon and the Tholian warship aligned their course, a new alert sounded from the science station. Ensign Chen's eyes widened as she studied the readings. "Captain," she called out, her voice tight with concern. "Long-range sensors are detecting a massive gravitational anomaly directly in our path. It's unlike anything I've ever seen." Foster moved to her station, studying the readouts. The anomaly loomed before them, a swirling vortex of gravitational forces that threatened to tear apart anything that ventured too close. It stood between them and the neutral station, a final obstacle in their already perilous journey. As Foster contemplated their options, Willow approached, her crystalline form shimmering with an idea. "Captain," she said, her harmonics resonating with grit, "I believe I know how we can navigate this anomaly, but it will require great risk and great trust." Foster turned to her, sensing the weight of her words. "What do you have in mind, Willa?" The Tholian commander's form seemed to pulse with energy as she spoke. "Lieutenant Clark's new abilities. They may be the key to our survival. If he can manipulate energy fields as Dr. Hayes suggests, he might be able to create a protective bubble around our ships, allowing us to pass through the anomaly unharmed." Foster's mind raced, considering the implications. It was a daring plan, one that could cost Billy his life if it went wrong. But as he looked around at his crew, at the Tholian refugees they'd risked everything to save, he knew they were out of options. "Get Billy to the bridge," Foster ordered, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his gut. "And open a channel to Admiral ZYXRA. We're going to need both ships for this." As the crew sprang into action, Foster stared at the swirling vortex on the monitor. In just a few short days, his mission had expanded far beyond anything he could have imagined. Now, the fate of two species rested on their ability to navigate this final challenge. With a deep breath, Foster squared his shoulders and prepared to brief his crew on their daring plan. Whatever lay beyond that anomaly, be it diplomatic tensions or new cosmic wonders, the Horizon and her allies would face it together. Foster's gaze lingered on the swirling vortex displayed on the monitor, his mind racing through their limited options. He turned to Willa, her crystalline form shimmering with anticipation. "All right, Willa. We'll try it your way," he said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the decision. "Let's bring Billy to the bridge." As the order was relayed, Foster addressed his crew. "We're about to attempt something unprecedented. Lieutenant Clark's new abilities may be our key to navigating this anomaly safely. I need everyone at their best." Within minutes, Billy arrived on the bridge, escorted by Dr. Hayes. The young officer's skin seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly energy, his eyes now a swirling mix of human irises and Tholian crystalline structures. "Billy," Foster said, approaching him carefully, "we need your help. Do you think you can channel your new abilities to create a protective field around our ships?" Billy nodded, his voice resonating with a slight harmonic undertone. "I'll do my best, Captain." As Billy took his position at the hastily constructed energy channeling station, Foster opened a channel to the crystalline vanguard. Admiral ZYXRA's angular form appeared on the screen. "Admiral, we're ready to proceed. Our ships will move in tandem, with the Horizon taking point. Lieutenant Clark will attempt to extend a protective field around both vessels." ZYXRA's crystalline structure pulsed in acknowledgement. "Understood, Captain. We stand ready." Foster gave the order, and the Horizon began its approach to the anomaly, the crystalline vanguard following closely behind. As they neared the swirling vortex, Billy's body began to glow, tendrils of energy extending from his fingertips into the ship's systems. The bridge crew watched in awe as the view screen suddenly exploded with information, sensor data far beyond their normal capabilities flooding in. Foster could see the intricate structure of the anomaly laid bare before them, a complex web of gravitational forces and energy distortions. Incredible! Ensign Chin breathed, her fingers flying over her console. The level of detail. It's like we can see the very fabric of space-time. Using this enhanced information, Foster began to call out course corrections, working in concert with Billy's intuitive navigation. The horizon weaved through the outer layers of the anomaly, the crystalline vanguard mirroring its movements precisely. As they penetrated deeper, the true nature of the phenomenon revealed itself. At its heart lay a collapsed neutron star, its immense gravity warping the space around it. A dense field of asteroids orbited the star, each one rich with rare elements. "Sir," Vega called out, her voice tense. "Those asteroids, they're incredibly unstable. The slightest miscalculation could send us colliding with one of them." Foster nodded grimly. "Understood. Billy, can you extend our protective field? We need to be ready for any debris." Billy grunted with effort, his body now glowing so brightly it was difficult to look at directly. A shimmering bubble of energy expanded from the horizon, encompassing both ships in its protective embrace. As they navigated through the treacherous field, alarms began to blare. "Captain," Dr. Hayes called out, her face etched with concern on a nearby monitor. "Billy's vitals are spiking. His human physiology can't sustain this level of energy output for much longer." Foster turned to Billy, seeing the strain evident on the young officer's face. "Billy, we can abort if—" "No!" Billy cut him off, his voice strained but determined. "I can do this. We're almost through." Just then, a massive asteroid directly in their path began to fracture, torn apart by the intense gravitational forces. A hail of deadly fragments hurtled towards both ships. "Brace for impact," Foster shouted, but the expected collision never came. Billy let out a primal scream, his body arching as he poured every ounce of his newfound power into the protective field. The debris bounced harmlessly off the energy bubble, scattering into the void. With a final burst of effort, Billy guided them through the densest part of the asteroid field. As they emerged into slightly clearer space, he collapsed to the deck, the glow fading from his body. "Medical team to the bridge," Foster called out, rushing to Billy's side. As the young officer was rushed to sickbay, Foster returned to his chair, knowing they weren't out of danger yet. "Conventional navigation from here on out," he ordered, his voice tight. "Let's finish what Billy started." The final stretch pushed both crews to their limits. Human and Tholian alike worked in perfect synchronization, their recent experiences forging a bond stronger than any diplomatic agreement could have achieved. As they finally broke free of the anomaly's influence, a collective sigh of relief swept through both ships. However, the respite was short-lived. Long-range sensors quickly picked up the neutral space station and the tense standoff surrounding it. Two fleets, one human and one Tholian, faced each other in a deadly array. It was clear that both sides had responded to their respective distress calls, each unaware of the full story. Foster shared a look with Willa, then opened a channel to Admiral ZYXRA. "Admiral, we've got a new challenge ahead of us. Are you seeing this?" "Indeed, Captain," ZYXRA replied, his tone grave. "It seems our arrival could either prevent a war or start one." As the horizon and crystalline vanguard approached the standoff, flying in perfect formation, Foster's comm badge chirped urgently. It was Dr. Hayes, her voice tight with a mix of excitement and concern. "Captain, you need to get down here. It's Billy. His transformation, it's not over. What's happening to him could change everything." Foster acknowledged the message, his mind racing. As they neared the neutral station, he knew the next few hours would determine the fate of two species. With Billy's condition evolving, a diplomatic powder keg waiting to explode, and the eyes of two fleets upon them, the true test was just beginning. Beginning. Foster's mind raced, processing the gravity of their situation as they approached the neutral space station. "Helm, bring us in nice and easy," Foster ordered, his voice calm despite the tension evident in his posture. "Let's not give anyone out there any reason to get trigger-happy." As the horizon glided towards the station, the vastness of space around them was filled with an armada of both human and Tholian vessels. The ships hung in perfect formation, a deadly array of firepower poised on a knife's edge. "Captain," Ensign called out, her eyes fixed on her console, "I'm picking up multiple weapon locks from both fleets. They're tracking our approach." Foster nodded grimly. "Maintain our course. Shields up, but weapons remain powered down. We're here to prevent a war, not start one." The crystalline vanguard moved in perfect sync with the horizon, both ships presenting a united front as they navigated the sea of potential hostilities. As they neared the station, Foster could make out the intricate architecture of the neutral facility, its design a testament to the engineering prowess of both species. Docking procedures initiated, Lieutenant Rodriguez announced from his station, "Station Control is directing us to Bay 7. Foster turned to Willa, who had remained a steady presence at his side throughout their approach. "Well, my friend, it seems we're about to face a different kind of challenge." Willa's crystalline form shimmered with what Foster had come to recognize as persistence. "Indeed, Captain, the true test of our alliance begins now." As the horizon maneuvered into its assigned docking bay, Foster addressed his crew. "I know we've all been through hell these past few days, but our job isn't done yet. I need everyone at their best. We're going to show these diplomats what real cooperation looks like." The ship shuddered slightly as the docking clamps engaged. Foster's calm badge chirped again, Dr. Hayes's voice coming through with renewed urgency. "Captain, I've stabilized Billy for now, but his condition is evolving. I think it's crucial that he be present for these negotiations." Foster furrowed his brow, considering the potential risks and benefits. "Understood, Doctor. Prepare him for transport to the station, but keep him under close observation." As the Horizon's crew prepared for disembarkation, Foster assembled his delegation. Willa stood tall beside him, her presence a living embodiment of the bridge they were trying to build between their species. Dr. Hayes joined them, her medical kit at the ready, eyes darting occasionally to the data pad monitoring Billy's vital signs. The airlock hissed open, revealing a reception area that somehow managed to accommodate the environmental needs of both humans and Tholians. A group of stern-faced diplomats waited for them, the atmosphere thick with unspoken tension. Ambassador Marcus Hartley stepped forward, his carefully neutral expression betraying only a hint of the stress he must be feeling. "Captain Foster, welcome to Neutral Station Alpha. I trust your journey was eventful?" Before Foster could respond, a crystalline form shifted forward from the Tholian delegation. High Counselor Zixtera's voice resonated through the chamber, harmonics laden with barely concealed hostility. "We demand an immediate explanation for your actions, Captain. The presence of Tholian citizens aboard your vessel is a clear violation of our sovereign rights." Foster took a deep breath, steadying himself for the diplomatic minefield ahead. "Ambassador, High Counselor, I assure you that our actions were taken with the utmost respect for both our peoples. If you'll allow me to present our full report, I believe you'll see that what transpired was not only necessary, but potentially revolutionary for our future relations." As Foster began to recount the events that had led them to this point, he could see the diplomat's expressions shifting from skepticism to guarded interest. He detailed the rescue operation, the unprecedented cooperation between the Horizon's crew and the Tholian refugees, and the incredible developments with Lieutenant Clark's transformation. Willa stepped forward, her crystalline form casting prismatic light across the room as she spoke. Esteemed leaders, what we have witnessed aboard the Horizon goes beyond mere cooperation. It is the birth of a true symbiosis between our species. The Tholian delegates vibrated with a mix of emotions Foster couldn't quite decipher, while Ambassador Hartley leaned in, clearly intrigued. You speak of symbiosis, but what evidence can you provide of this? Unprecedented development? As if on cue, alarms began to blare throughout the station. The lights flickered, and Foster felt a momentary shift in the artificial gravity. Dr. Hayes's comm badge chirped urgently. Doctor. Chief Engineer Thompson's voice came through, tight with tension. Billy's energy emissions are spiking. We're having trouble containing them, and they're starting to affect the station systems. Foster exchanged a look with Dr. Hayes, both realizing the gravity of the situation. The doctor turned to the assembled diplomats, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. What you're witnessing is the next stage in human-Tholian relations, she explained. Lieutenant Clark's transformation has created a unique connection to Tholian energy patterns. His presence here, among so many Tholians, has accelerated the process. High Counselor Zixdera's form pulsed with what Foster interpreted as a mix of fascination and alarm. You bring this hybrid onto our neutral ground? This could be seen as an act of biological warfare. Ambassador Hartley, however, saw an opportunity, or it could be the key to a deeper understanding between our species. Captain Foster, is there any way we can safely observe this phenomenon? Foster's mind raced, weighing the risks against the potential diplomatic breakthrough. Dr. Hayes, can we bring Billy here safely? The doctor nodded, already tapping commands into her data pad. We've prepared a mobile containment unit. It should allow us to channel his energy emissions safely, at least for a short time. Foster turned back to the diplomats, his expression resolute. High Counselor, Ambassador, I propose we allow Lieutenant Clark to address the summit. What he represents could change everything we thought we knew about the potential for our species to coexist. A tense silence fell over the room as the delegates considered the proposal. The station shuddered again, another surge of energy from Billy rippling through its systems. Finally, Ambassador Hartley nodded. Agreed. Let's see what your lieutenant has to show us. High Counselor Zixdera's crystalline form vibrated for a moment before settling. Very well, Captain, but be warned. If this proves to be a threat to my people, the consequences will be severe. As Dr. Hayes coordinated with the Horizon's medical team to transport Billy, Foster felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The eyes of two species were about to witness something unprecedented, and the fate of their future relations hung in the balance. The conference room doors slid open, and all eyes turned to see Lieutenant Billy Clark being wheeled in, encased in a glowing containment field. His body pulsed with an otherworldly light, a living fusion of human and Tholian energies. As Billy was positioned before the gathered delegates, Foster could see the mixture of awe and apprehension on their faces. Whatever happened next would shape the course of interstellar diplomacy for generations to come. Billy's eyes, now a swirling mix of human irises and Tholian crystalline structures, swept across the room. When he spoke, his voice carried an harmonic undertone that seemed to resonate with the very structure of the station. Esteemed leaders, Billy began, his words carrying a weight beyond his years. I stand before you as living proof of what our species can achieve together. Together, Billy continued, his voice resonating with a newfound strength. What I've experienced is not just a personal transformation, but a glimpse into the potential future of our species' relationship. As he spoke, Billy's body pulsed with energy, the containment field surrounding him humming with increased activity. Suddenly, a wave of energy burst forth from him, washing over the assembled delegates. The Tholian representatives vibrated in response, their crystalline forms resonating with the energy. High Counselor Zixtera's form shimmered intensely, her voice filled with awe and confusion. What is happening? Dr. Hayes rushed forward, her medical tricorder whirring as she scanned Billy and the affected Tholians. It appears to be some kind of psychic link, she announced, her voice tight with concentration. Billy's hybrid physiology is somehow allowing him to share his experiences directly with the Tholian delegates. The room fell silent as the Tholians experienced a flood of Billy's memories. The harrowing rescue operation, the unprecedented cooperation aboard the Horizon, and the gradual understanding that had developed between the two species. As the energy subsided, the Tholian delegates buzzed with a mixture of confusion and excitement. High Counselor Zixtera's form pulsed rapidly as she processed the shared experience. "This is unprecedented," she said, her voice carrying a new note of wonder. "We must examine this further. I call for a brief recess to confer with my delegation." As the Tholian representatives huddled together in intense discussion, Dr. Hayes and Dr. Alara, the Horizon's Tholian medical officer, approached Billy. Their instruments danced over his glowing form, recording a wealth of data. "Fascinating," Dr. Alara chirped, her crystalline appendages moving in intricate patterns as she analyzed the readings. "It appears that the proximity to a large number of Tholians has stabilized Lieutenant Clark's condition somewhat." Dr. Hayes nodded in agreement. If this trend continues, it could have significant implications for Billy's long-term health and the potential for future human-Tholian interactions. As the summit reconvened, the atmosphere in the room had shifted dramatically. High Counselor Zixtera stepped forward, her crystalline form shimmering with what Foster had come to recognize as excitement. "Esteemed colleagues," she began, her harmonics resonating with newfound purpose. "In light of these extraordinary developments, I propose we establish a joint human-Tholian research program. We must study the effects of Lieutenant Clark's transformation and explore the potential benefits for both our species." Ambassador Hartley leaned forward, his eyes alight with the possibilities. "An excellent suggestion, High Counselor. In fact, I would like to propose we take this a step further. What if we were to establish a mixed-species colony on a neutral planet? It could serve as a testbed for long-term cooperation between our peoples." The room erupted in a flurry of excited discussion, with officials from both sides beginning to debate potential locations and resource allocation. However, the excitement was short-lived as Subcommander Crixtel, a hardline Tholian official, stepped forward. "This is an outrage." Crixtel's voice cut through the chatter, sharp and discordant. "We cannot allow this abomination to continue. The human must be turned over to Tholian authorities for study and cleansing of his human elements. The purity of our species is at stake." The human delegates bristled at the implied threat, the atmosphere in the room growing tense once more. Captain Foster, sensing the delicate balance tipping, stepped forward. "Subcommander, I understand your concerns," Foster said, his voice calm but firm. "However, I believe there's a compromise we can reach. I propose we form a joint human-Tholian medical team to oversee Lieutenant Clark's care and study his condition. Both species would have equal access and authority in this arrangement." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the station, cutting through the tense atmosphere. The lights flickered, and Foster felt the artificial gravity fluctuate beneath his feet. Chief Engineer Thompson's voice crackled over the intercom, tight with urgency. "Captain, we've got a situation. The station's power grid is experiencing critical fluctuations. The combined presence of Lieutenant Clark and the large number of Tholian delegates is creating some kind of resonance effect. If we don't stabilize it soon, we're looking at a potential overload of the station systems." As if to emphasize the point, a shower of sparks erupted from a nearby control panel. Station security sprang into action, their voices echoing through the corridors as they initiated emergency protocols. Sealing off sections Beta through Epsilon, A security officer shouted over the commotion. All personnel, please remain calm and follow evacuation procedures. Foster's mind raced, assessing the rapidly evolving situation. He tapped his comm badge, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. Horizon, this is Foster. Prepare for immediate evacuation of the station. We may need to clear everyone out at a moment's notice. To his surprise, Admiral Zizaray's voice cut in, the Tholian leader's harmonics resonating with persistence. Captain Foster, the crystalline vanguard stands ready to assist in any rescue operations. Let us face this challenge together. As engineers from both species raced to stabilize the station's power grid, Billy's containment field began to fluctuate wildly. Dr. Hayes rushed to his side, her eyes widening as she read the data on her tricorder. "Captain," she called out, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and concern. "Billy's body. It's absorbing the excess energy from the overloading systems. He's acting as a living regulator." All eyes turned to Billy, his form now glowing with an intensity that rivaled the station's emergency lights. The young officer's face was a mask of concentration as he struggled to contain the surging energies coursing through him. I think I can help," Billy managed to say through gritted teeth. "But I don't know how long I can keep this up." As Billy fought to stabilize the station's systems, Foster knew they were witnessing a pivotal moment in human-Tholian relations. The crisis had brought a new urgency to their negotiations, forcing both sides to recognize the need for cooperation in the face of unforeseen challenges. With the immediate danger passing thanks to Billy's intervention and the combined efforts of human and Tholian engineers, the summit participants began to return to the negotiation table. The atmosphere was charged with a newfound appreciation for the potential of their combined strengths. Foster surveyed the room, noting the mix of awe, curiosity, and lingering apprehension on the faces of both human and Tholian delegates. As they settled back into their seats, he knew that the real work was just beginning. The events aboard the station would undoubtedly make headlines across both human and Tholian space, sparking intense public interest and debate. "Ladies and gentlemen," Foster began, his voice carrying the weight of the moment, "what we've witnessed here today is just the beginning. We stand on the brink of a new era in interspecies cooperation. The question now is, how do we move forward? Forward is, how do we move beyond mere coexistence to true collaboration?" As the delegates began to voice their ideas, a piercing alarm cut through the air, silencing all discussion. Red warning lights bathed the room in an eerie glow as the station's computer announced, "Proximity alert. Unidentified vessel detected." Captain Foster's comm badge chirped urgently. "Captain, this is Lieutenant Commander Chun on the bridge. We've got a situation." Foster tapped his badge, his voice tense. "Report, Commander." "Sir, a Kroloth raider ship just decloaked off our starboard bow. It's the same group that attacked us earlier. They're charging weapons." The captain's eyes widened, his mind racing. "Red alert! All hands to battle stations." Before Foster could issue further orders, the station rocked violently, throwing several delegates off balance. Sparks erupted from nearby consoles as the Kroloth vessel opened fire. "Shields up," Foster barked into his comm badge. "Horizon, coordinate with the crystalline vanguard. We need to form a defensive perimeter around the station." Admiral Zhuaxeray's crystalline form vibrated with urgency. "Captain Foster, the Tholian fleet stands ready to assist. We shall face this threat together." As the human and Tholian ships scrambled to respond, the space around the station erupted into chaos. Phaser beams and crystalline torpedoes crisscrossed the void, met by the sickly green energy weapons of the Kroloth raider. Inside the station, Security Chief Michael Rodriguez sprang into action, coordinating the evacuation of the delegates. "This way," he shouted, gesturing toward a reinforced corridor. Move quickly and calmly. As Rodriguez ushered the diplomats to safety, he noticed Subcommander Crixtel, the hardline Tholian official, break away from the group. The Tholian's crystalline form shimmered oddly as he moved against the flow of evacuees, heading toward the medical bay where Billy Clark was being held. Rodriguez's instincts flared. Something wasn't right. He tapped his comm badge. Security team to medical bay now. The security chief sprinted after Crixtel, weaving through panicked crowds and dodging falling debris. He rounded a corner just in time to see the Tholian official and two accomplices forcing their way into the medical bay. Inside, Dr. Hayes stood protectively in front of Billy's containment unit. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. Crixtel's voice crackled with malice. "Step aside, human. The hybrid comes with us." Rodriguez burst through the door, his phaser drawn. "Nobody's going anywhere," he growled. Crixtel's crystalline appendages whirred as he turned to face the security chief. "You are too late, human. The Kroloff will have what they came for." With shocking speed, Crixtel launched himself at Rodriguez. The security chief barely had time to dodge, feeling the heat from the Tholian's crystalline body as it passed. Rodriguez rolled to his feet, his combat training kicking in. As Rodriguez engaged Crixtel in a fierce hand-to-hand struggle, Dr. Hayes worked frantically to secure Billy's containment unit. The young lieutenant's hybrid form pulsed with energy, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and drive. On the Horizon's bridge, Captain Foster gripped his command chair as another volley from the Kroloff ship rocked the vessel. "Status report," he barked. "Shields at 68%, Captain," reported Lieutenant Yara Khoury from Tactical. "The Kroloff ship's cloaking technology is giving them a significant advantage. We can't get a solid lock." Foster's mind raced, recalling the unique properties of Billy's energy emissions. An idea formed. "Thompson," he called to his chief engineer, "can we modify the deflector dish to emit an energy signature similar to Billy's hybrid form?" Thompson's eyes lit up with understanding. "Brilliant, sir. If we can replicate that frequency, it might disrupt their cloaking field. Give me 2 minutes." As Thompson worked his engineering magic, the battle raged on. The Tholian ships moved in perfect synchronization, their crystalline forms allowing them to absorb and redirect energy in ways the human vessels couldn't match. But even their advanced technology struggled against the Kroloth's hit-and-fade tactics. Back on the station, Rodriguez found himself hard-pressed against Crixtel's inhuman strength and speed. The Tholian's crystalline body deflected blows that would have incapacitated a human opponent. But Rodriguez's training and experience allowed him to hold his own, using the environment to his advantage. As they fought, Billy's containment unit began to fluctuate wildly. Dr. Hayes' eyes widened in alarm as she read the data on her tricorder. "His energy levels are spiking. The stress of the attack is destabilizing his cellular structure." Billy's voice, strained but determined, came from within the unit. I can help. Let me out, Doctor. I can reinforce the station's shields." Hayes hesitated, torn between the potential risk to Billy and the imminent danger to the station. With a silent prayer, she deactivated the containment field. Billy stepped out, his body glowing with an otherworldly light. He raised his hands, and waves of energy pulsed from him, spreading throughout the station. The shields visibly strengthened, deflecting a barrage of Kroloff weapons fire that would have otherwise breached the hull. On the horizon, Thompson's voice rang out triumphantly. "Modifications complete, Captain. Activating the deflector dish now." A beam of focused energy burst from the horizon, washing over the space where the Kroloff ship had last been seen. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like a veil being lifted, the massive form of the Kroloff raider shimmered into view. Foster allowed himself a grim smile. "All ships, target that vessel. Fire at will." The combined firepower of the human and Tholian fleets converged on the now vulnerable Kroloth ship. Its shields buckled under the assault, atmosphere venting from multiple hull breaches. As the tide of battle turned, Rodriguez finally gained the upper hand against Crixtel. With a well-placed strike, he sent the traitorous Tholian crashing into a bank of medical equipment. Crixtel's crystalline form cracked, and he collapsed in a heap of fractured shards. But even as he fell, Crixtel managed to activate a hidden device. A signal pulsed out, and suddenly, the Horizon sensors detected multiple smaller craft launching from the Kroloth raider. "Captain," Corey's voice was urgent. "We've got incoming. Multiple attack shuttles on an intercept course with the station." Foster's heart made as he assessed the new threat. The battle was far from finished, and the next few moments would determine the fate of not just the station, but potentially the future of human-Tholian relations. With lives hanging in the balance and the specter of interstellar war looming, he knew that his next decision could change everything. Everything. With an iron will etched on his face, Foster tapped his comm badge. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for emergency maneuvers." Foster's mind raced as he formulated a plan. The Kroloth attack shuttles were closing in fast, and time was running out. He turned to his tactical officer, Lieutenant Curry. "Lieutenant, can we modify our deflector dish to emit an energy signature similar to Billy's hybrid form?" Curry's eyes widened with understanding. "Brilliant, sir. If we can replicate that frequency, it might disrupt their attack patterns. I'll coordinate with engineering immediately." As Curry worked feverishly at her console, Foster opened a channel to the Tholian flagship. "Admiral ZYXRA, we're going to attempt to create an energy barrier between the station and the Kroloth vessels. Can your ships provide cover fire while we maneuver into position?" The Tholian leader's harmonics resonated with approval. "Affirmative, Captain Foster." The crystalline vanguard stands ready to assist. Foster nodded to his helmsman. "Ensign Chun, bring us about. Position the horizon between the station and the main Kroloth vessel." The massive starship pivoted gracefully, its powerful engines flaring as it took up a defensive stance. On the interface, Foster watched as the Tholian ships moved in perfect synchronization, their crystalline forms glinting in the starlight as they unleashed a barrage of energy weapons against the incoming Kroloth shuttles. "Deflector modifications complete, Captain," Curry reported, her fingers dancing across her console. "Activating now." A shimmering curtain of energy erupted from the Horizon's deflector dish, spreading out to form a protective barrier around the station. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The first wave of Kroloth shuttles slammed into the barrier, their weapons fire dissipating harmlessly against its surface. Inside the station, Security Chief Michael Rodriguez grappled with Sub-Commander Crixtel, their struggle spilling into the main power distribution center. The Tholian's crystalline body radiated intense heat, forcing Rodriguez to maintain his distance even as he sought an opening. "You're making a mistake, Crixtel," Rodriguez growled, dodging a swipe from the Tholian's razor-sharp appendage. "Whatever the Kroloth promised you, it's not worth betraying your own people." Crixtel's voice crackled with contempt. "You understand nothing, human. The Kroloth offer power beyond your comprehension." Their fight raged on, neither combatant giving ground. In the chaos, a stray energy blast from Crixtel's weapon struck a bank of power conduits. Sparks erupted, and alarms blared as cascading failures rippled through the station systems. On the Horizon's bridge, Chief Engineer Marcus Thompson's voice cut through the tension. "Captain, we've got a problem. The station's power grid is destabilizing. Life support systems are starting to fail." Foster's heart sank as he realized the gravity of the situation. The energy barrier was holding off the Kroloth attack, but at what cost? He faced an impossible choice. Maintain the barrier and potentially doom thousands on the station, or lower their defenses and risk a renewed Kroloth assault. In the secure area where the summit delegates had taken shelter, Ambassador Marcus Hartley and High Counselor Zixtera emerged from the crowd. The human diplomat and his Tholian counterpart exchanged a look of mutual understanding. "We cannot sit idly by while our fate is decided." Zixtera's crystalline form vibrated with urgency. Hartley nodded, his expression grim. "Agreed. We need to take action. Does anyone here have engineering experience?" A handful of delegates, both human and Tholian, stepped forward. Hartley quickly organized them into teams, assigning each group to a critical system. "We'll manually override the emergency protocols," he explained, his voice carrying the weight of command. "If we can restore even partial power to key areas, we might buy enough time for Captain Foster and the fleet to repel the Kroloth." As the impromptu engineering teams dispersed, guided by Zixtera's knowledge of Tholian systems, the situation in the medical bay took a dire turn. Billy Clark, still connected to the station's systems through his containment unit, became aware of the power crisis. "Dr. Hayes," he called out, his voice strained. "I can help. I can channel my energy to power the critical systems." Dr. Alara, the Tholian physician, vibrated with concern. "Lieutenant Clark, the risk to your physiology would be extreme. We don't know how your hybrid form will react to such an energy transfer." Billy's eyes blazed with tenacity. "We don't have a choice. Thousands of lives are at stake." Before either doctor could protest further, Billy closed his eyes and concentrated. Waves of energy began to pulse from his body, spreading throughout the station. Emergency lights flickered back to life, and the hum of life support systems filled the air. Dr. Hayes watched in a mixture of awe and horror as Billy's body began to change. Crystalline structures formed along his skin, spreading rapidly across his form. "Billy, your body. It's crystallizing." Outside the station, the space battle raged on with renewed intensity. Admiral Zoaxaray's crystalline vanguard executed a series of dazzling maneuvers, their ships moving in perfect harmony as they struck at the Kroloth Raiders' key systems. Human vessels provided supporting fire, their phasers and photon torpedoes finding gaps in the enemy's defenses. On the bridge of the Kroloth flagship, Captain Zorg snarled in frustration as damage reports flooded in. "This cannot be happening. I will not accept defeat at the hands of these lesser beings." His second-in-command approached cautiously. "Sir, our shields are failing. Perhaps we should consider retreat dash." Zorg silenced him with a backhand strike. "Silence. We will prevail. All remaining attack craft, concentrate fire on the human vessel. Destroy their energy barrier, and victory will be ours." As the Kroloth forces regrouped for a final, desperate assault, Captain Foster watched the tactical display with growing concern. The Horizon's shields were beginning to buckle under the concentrated attack. "Sir," Lieutenant Corey reported, her voice tense. "Shields down to 30% and falling. We can't take much more of this." Foster's mind raced, searching for a solution. Just then, his calm badge chirped. "Captain, this is Security Chief Rodriguez. I've subdued the Tholian traitor, Crixtel. He's revealed critical information about the Kroloth Raiders' weaknesses." A spark of hope ignited in Foster's chest. "Go ahead, Chief. What have you learned?" As Rodriguez relayed the intelligence, a plan began to form in Foster's mind. It was risky, potentially suicidal, but it might be their only chance to end this conflict once and for all. "Helm, prepare for emergency maneuvers," Foster ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "We're going in close, point-blank range with the Kroloth command section." His bridge crew looked at him in shock, but there was no time for doubt. As the Horizon broke formation and surged forward, the fate of the station, the summit, and the future of human-Tholian relations hung in the balance. The next few moments would determine whether this crisis would forge a new era of cooperation or plunge both species into an abyss of conflict. Interstellar conflict. Foster's grip tightened on his command chair as the horizon surged forward, closing the distance to the Kroloth Raiders' command section. All power to the deflector dish. Foster barked, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Prepare to fire on my mark. The bridge hummed with tension as the crew worked feverishly to implement their captain's daring plan. Lieutenant Curry's fingers flew across her console, recalibrating the deflector dish to emit an intense energy beam. "Deflector ready, sir," Curry reported, her voice taut with anticipation. Foster leaned forward, his gaze locked on the looming form of the Kroloth vessel. "Fire!" A brilliant lance of energy erupted from the horizon's deflector dish, its intensity amplified by the unique properties of Billy Clark's hybrid energy signature. The beam sliced through space, piercing the Kroloth Raiders' shields as if they were gossamer. On the enemy bridge, Captain Zorg stumbled as his ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared and consoles exploded in showers of sparks. His second-in-command's voice rose above the chaos. "Sir, we've lost main power. Weapons offline, shields failing." Zorg's eyes blazed with fury and desperation. He shoved his subordinate aside, accessing the ship's core systems. "If we cannot have victory, then we shall have vengeance." With a savage gesture, Zorg initiated the Raiders' self-destruct sequence. The ship's energy core began to pulse ominously, building towards a catastrophic overload. Admiral Zweixeray's crystalline form vibrated with alarm as her sensors detected the impending explosion. "All ships, withdraw immediately. The Kroloth vessel is about to detonate." The combined human-Tholian fleet began to scatter, desperate to escape the blast radius. But Foster knew they couldn't outrun the explosion, not with the station and damaged ships in the area. "Helm, maintain position," Foster ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Curry, redirect all available power to the deflector dish. We're going to channel that explosion away from the station." The Horizon's crew worked with frantic precision, pushing their systems to the limit. As the Kroloth Raider reached critical mass, Foster felt a moment of eerie calm descend over the bridge. The explosion blossomed in space, a silent flower of destruction. The Horizon's deflector dish flared to life, catching the brunt of the blast and redirecting its fury. The ship groaned under the strain, hull plates buckling and conduits rupturing throughout its structure. Foster gripped his chair as the deck heaved beneath him. "Hold steady. We can do this." On the station, Billy Clark's crystalline body pulsed with energy as he fought to maintain power to critical systems. Dr. Hayes and Dr. Lara worked frantically, monitoring his vital signs as they fluctuated wildly. "We need to disconnect him now," Dr. Hayes shouted over the blare of alarms. "If we wait any longer, we might lose him completely." Dr. Lara's crystalline form vibrated with concern. "Agreed. Initiating separation protocol." As they began the delicate process of severing Billy's connection to the station systems, Security Chief Rodriguez secured the last of Crickstell's co-conspirators in the Power Distribution Center. He tapped his comm badge, his voice urgent. "Rodriguez to bridge. Traitors contained. What's our status?" Foster's reply came through garbled with static. "Ho! Position. Deflecting. Explosion." Rodriguez's eyes widened as he pieced together the situation. He turned to the Joint Human-Tholian security team. "We need to reinforce critical areas now. Move." In the secure area, Ambassador Hartley and High Counselor Zixtera emerged from their impromptu command center. The delegates gathered around them, faces etched with worry and hope. "What's happening?" a human diplomat asked, her voice quavering. Hartley's expression was grim but determined. "The Horizon is shielding us from the explosion. We need to be ready to assist with recovery efforts as soon as it's over. Zixtera's crystalline form shimmered with agreement. Indeed, this crisis has shown us the true potential of our cooperation. We must build on this foundation. As the last of the explosion's energy dissipated, an eerie quiet settled over the battlefield. The horizon drifted in space, its hull scarred and venting atmosphere in multiple locations. Inside, emergency force fields snapped into place as damage control teams rushed to contain the devastation. Foster pulled himself to his feet, surveying his battered bridge. Status report. Corey coughed, waving away the smoke from her damaged console. Multiple hull breaches. Sir, we've lost main power, and life support is on emergency backup. But we're still here. Good work, everyone, Foster said, allowing himself a moment of relief. He tapped his comm badge. Foster to all ships. Begin search and rescue operations immediately. Prioritize escape pods and damaged vessels. As the fleet mobilized to save survivors, Dr. Hayes and Dr. Alara completed the procedure to disconnect Billy from the station systems. They watched in amazement as his body stabilized, the crystalline structures seamlessly integrating with his human physiology. Billy's eyes fluttered open, glowing with an otherworldly light. Did we win? He asked, his voice a mixture of human speech and Tholian harmonics. Dr. Hayes smiled, tears in her eyes. Yes, Billy, we won. And you. You're something entirely new. As the immediate crisis passed, the true scope of the aftermath began to unfold. The space around the station was littered with debris from destroyed ships, both Kroloff and Allied. Rescue shuttles darted between floating fragments, searching for survivors. Admiral Zwaxaray's flagship approached the horizon, its crystalline structure gleaming in the starlight. Her voice resonated through the comm system, filled with a newfound respect. Captain Foster, your actions have saved countless lives today. The Tholian Crystalline Vanguard stands ready to assist with your repairs and recovery efforts. Foster nodded, feeling the weight of the battle's toll. Thank you, Admiral. We'll need all the help we can get. As the combined fleet began the arduous task of picking up the pieces, Foster couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The battle was won, but the repercussions of this day would echo across the galaxy for years to come. New alliances had been forged in the crucible of combat, but with them came new challenges and unforeseen consequences. The captain looked out at the stars, contemplating the uncertain future that lay ahead. The next steps they took would be crucial in shaping the course of human-Tholian relations and the balance of power in the known universe. Foster turned away from the viewport, his mind already racing with the monumental task ahead. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. Lieutenant Corey, contact Admiral ZYXRA, he ordered. We need to establish a joint command center immediately. As Corey carried out his instructions, Foster tapped his comm badge. Foster to all department heads. Report to Conference Room 1 in 15 minutes. We're coordinating with our Tholian allies for recovery efforts. The next hours passed in a blur of activity. Foster found himself in one of the station's undamaged sections, surrounded by a mix of human and Tholian officers. The air hummed with the crystalline vibrations of Tholian speech, interspersed with the more familiar tones of human voices. Admiral Zwaxaray's form shimmered as she addressed the gathered leaders. We must prioritize search and rescue operations. Many escape pods remain unaccounted for. Foster nodded in agreement. Agreed, Admiral. We'll need to pool our resources. The horizon is in no shape to assist directly, but we can coordinate from here. As they spoke, Chief Engineer Marcus Thompson entered the makeshift command center, his uniform stained with coolant and scorch marks. Captain, we've completed our initial assessment of the horizon. She's in bad shape, so we can't maintain orbit. Foster's mind focused. Understood, Chief. work with the station's personnel to get her into one of the docking bays. And I want you to lead a joint engineering team, human and Tholian. We need to get her operational as quickly as possible. Thompson's eyes widened slightly at the prospect of working so closely with the crystalline aliens, but he nodded firmly. Aye, sir, we'll make it happen. As Thompson left to carry out his orders, Foster turned his attention to the station's internal sensors. The damage was extensive, with multiple sections showing critical failures. We need to evacuate these areas immediately, he said, pointing to the most severely affected zones. And get damage control teams to shore up these weakening structural points. Admiral ZYXRA vibrated in agreement. I will assign Tholian crystal shapers to assist. Their abilities may prove crucial in reinforcing the damaged sections. As the recovery efforts kicked into high gear, Foster received an urgent communication from Dr. Hayes in the medical bay. The captain excused himself and moved to a quieter corner to take the call. Doctor, what's the situation? Hayes' voice was strained. It's bad, Captain. We're overwhelmed with casualties, human and Tholian. We're doing our best, but we're not equipped to handle some of these hybrid injuries. Foster frowned. What do you mean, hybrid injuries? The battle involved weapons and energies we've never encountered before, Hayes explained. We're seeing effects that don't match anything in our medical database, and the Tholians are facing similar issues with their wounded. The captain's mind raced. Okay, Doctor. I'm sending Dr. Alara to assist you. Work together. Pool your knowledge. If we can turn this crisis into an opportunity for medical advancement, do it. As Foster returned to the command center, he saw Security Chief Rodriguez enter, his face grim. Captain, we've secured Crixtel and his co-conspirators, but I've uncovered some disturbing information. The Kroloff infiltration goes deeper than we thought. There's evidence of sleeper agents in both human and Tholian societies. Foster absorbed this news, recognizing both the danger and the opportunity it presented. Good work, Chief. I want a full briefing prepared for both human and Tholian leadership. This shared threat could be the key to cementing our alliance. As Rodriguez nodded and moved away, Foster's gaze fell on a monitor showing the docking bay where the horizon was being towed. He watched as human and Tholian engineers worked side by side, their differences forgotten in the face of a common goal. A flicker of movement caught his eye, and he turned to see Ambassador Hartley approaching, accompanied by High Counselor Zixtera. The human diplomat's face was etched with fatigue, but his eyes shone with a determined light. Captain, Hartley began, High Counselor Zixtera and I have been discussing the long-term implications of recent events. We believe the time is right to propose a joint human-Tholian task force. Zixtera's crystalline form vibrated in agreement. Such a force would be dedicated to combating the Kroloff threat and protecting our mutual interests. It could serve as a foundation for lasting peace between our peoples. Foster nodded slowly, considering the implications. It's an ambitious proposal, but one that could change the course of interstellar relations. You have my full support. As the ambassador and counselor moved away to continue their discussions, Foster's calm badge chirped again. Captain, came Dr. Alara's voice. We need you in the medical research lab immediately. It's about Lieutenant Clark. Foster's pulse quickened as he made his way to the lab. He found Billy Clark lying on a biobed, his body still a mesmerizing blend of human and Tholian physiology. Dr. Hayes and Dr. Alara stood nearby, their faces a mix of concern and excitement. What's his condition? Foster asked, approaching the bed. Dr. Hayes gestured to the readouts above the biobed. His vital signs have stabilized, but his physiological changes appear to be permanent. More importantly, he's exhibiting some remarkable new abilities. Billy's eyes opened, glowing with an otherworldly light. When he spoke, his voice carried the harmonic overtones of Tholian speech. Captain, I can understand them now. Not just their words, but the subtleties, the nuances we could never translate before. Foster's mind raced with the implications of this development. Billy Clark had become a living bridge between their species, a key to unlocking deeper understanding and cooperation. As he stood there, contemplating the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead, Foster's comm badge chirped once more. "Captain," came Lieutenant Corey's urgent voice, "long-range sensors are picking up a fleet of ships approaching from Earth. It's Starfleet, so they're responding to our distress call." Foster took a deep breath, knowing that the arrival of this fleet would add yet another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. The next few hours would be crucial in shaping the future of human-Tholian relations and the balance of power in the quadrant. "Acknowledged, Lieutenant," he replied, his voice steady despite the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Inform Admiral ZYXRA and Ambassador Hartley. We need to prepare for their arrival." As Foster left the medical lab, his mind was already formulating strategies for the diplomatic challenges ahead. The station buzzed with activity around him, humans and Tholians working together in ways that would have been unimaginable just days ago. Whatever the future held, one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. As Foster left the medical lab, his mind already formulating strategies for the diplomatic challenges ahead, the station's alert system blared to life. Red warning lights flashed throughout the corridors, and Lieutenant Corey's voice echoed over the intercom. "Captain Foster to the command center immediately. We have a critical situation developing." Foster broke into a run, weaving through the bustling crowd of humans and Tholians. He burst into the command center, where Admiral ZYXRA and Ambassador Hartley were already gathered around a holographic display. "Report," Foster demanded, his eyes fixed on the swirling mass of data before him. Admiral Coleman's face appeared on the main view screen, her expression grim. "Captain, we've detected a massive asteroid on a collision course with Proxima 3. Impact is estimated in 72 hours. We need your team to lead a joint human-Tholian mission to divert or destroy it." Foster's mind raced, quickly assessing the situation. "Understood, Admiral. We'll assemble a task force immediately." As Foster began issuing orders, the command center erupted into a flurry of activity. He turned to Admiral ZYXRA, whose crystalline form shimmered with urgency. "Admiral, we'll need your crystalline vanguard. Can you have it ready to depart within the hour?" ZYXRA's form pulsed an affirmation. "It shall be done, Captain. My crew stands ready." Foster tapped his comm badge. "Foster to Chief Thompson. How soon can we get the Horizon spaceworthy?" Thompson's voice crackled through, tinged with exhaustion but determined. "We've just finished emergency repairs. Sir, she's not pretty, but she'll fly." "Good work, Chief. Prepare for immediate departure." As the task force assembled, Foster found himself in the Horizon's engineering bay, where human and Tholian engineers worked side by side in a chaotic dance of sparks and crystal shards. Chief Thompson approached, wiping grease from his hands. "Captain, we've been working with the Tholians to modify our weapon systems. We're integrating their energy-focusing technology with our photon torpedoes. If it works, it could give us the punch we need to crack that asteroid." Foster nodded, impressed by the rapid progress. "Excellent work, Chief. Keep at it." A familiar voice called out from across the bay. "Captain." Foster turned to see Billy Clark striding towards him, his hybrid form drawing curious glances from the crew. "Lieutenant Clark, should you be up and about?" Billy's eyes glowed with grit. "Sir, I want to join this mission. My new abilities. I think I can help control the asteroid fragments after we blast it." Foster hesitated, considering the risks. Before he could respond, Dr. Hayes appeared at Billy's side. "If he goes, I go," the doctor stated firmly. "Someone needs to monitor his condition." Foster weighed the potential benefits against the dangers. Finally, he nodded. All right, you're both in. But at the first sign of trouble, you're to stand down. Understood? As the final preparations were made, Foster stood on the Horizon's bridge, watching through the view screen as the combined fleet assembled. Human and Tholian ships formed up in perfect formation, a sight that would have been unthinkable mere days ago. All ships report ready, Captain, Corey announced from her station. Foster took a deep breath, feeling the weight of billions of lives resting on their success. Signal the fleet. Set course for Proxima 3, maximum warp. The stars streaked into lines as the fleet jumped to warp, racing against time to save a world from annihilation. Foster gripped the arms of his chair, his mind already several steps ahead, planning for the challenges that lay before them. As they hurtled through space, Foster couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was more than just a rescue operation. It was a test of their new alliance, of their combined capabilities, and of their persistence in the face of overwhelming odds. The bridge fell silent, save for the hum of the engines and the occasional beep from the consoles. Everyone knew what was at stake. Foster's gaze remained fixed on the console, watching the warp field shimmer around them as they pushed the limits of their ships. Suddenly, long-range sensors blared a warning. Lieutenant Curry's fingers danced across her console, her eyes widening as she interpreted the data. "Captain, we've got company," she reported, her voice tense. "Multiple Kroloff signatures detected near Proxima 3. They're in an intercept pattern." Foster's eyes hardened. This was no coincidence. "It's a trap," he muttered, his mind racing to formulate a new strategy. He tapped his comm badge. "Foster to Admiral ZYXRA. We've got Kroloff ships waiting for us. Prepare for immediate engagement upon arrival." The Tholian Admiral's crystalline voice resonated through the bridge. "Acknowledge, Captain. We stand ready." As the fleet dropped out of warp near Proxima 3, the situation became clear. A group of Kroloff warships hung in space between them and the massive asteroid, their weapons already charging. Foster knew they had to act fast. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Captain Foster. We're now fighting a battle on two fronts. Admiral ZYXRA, take half the fleet and engage the Kroloff. The rest of us will proceed to the asteroid. We don't have time for a prolonged battle. Hit hard and fast." As ZYXRA's ships peeled off to confront the Kroloff, Foster led the remaining vessels towards the looming asteroid. The Horizon sensors provided a detailed analysis of the massive rock, and Foster's heart sank as he processed the information. "Chief Thompson," he called out, "that asteroid's composition is much denser than we anticipated. Our current weapons might not be enough to break it apart." Thompson's voice came back, strained but determined. "Understood. Sir, we'll need to get closer, much closer, for our modified torpedoes to have any effect." Foster's mind raced through their options, each one more desperate than the last. He glanced at the chronometer, acutely aware of the dwindling time before impact. In the distance, flashes of weapons fire illuminated space as ZYXRA's forces engaged the Kroloff. With a deep breath, Foster made his decision. "Helm, plot a course directly into that crevice on the asteroid surface. We're going in." A hush fell over the bridge as the crew realized the implications of the order. Foster stood, his voice carrying across the stunned silence. "I know what I'm asking. This is volunteer only. Anyone who wants to stay behind, now's your chance." Not a single crew member moved. Foster nodded, a mixture of pride and commitment filling his chest. "All right then, let's save a world." The Horizon surged forward, plunging towards the heart of the asteroid. As they entered the crevice, the ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring from every console. Hull integrity dropping. Corey shouted over the din. We're being crushed. Suddenly, a shimmering energy field enveloped the ship. Billy Clark stood at the center of the bridge, his hybrid form glowing with power. "I've got us, Captain," he said, his voice strained. "But I don't know how long I can hold it." Foster nodded grimly. "It'll have to be long enough. All hands, brace for impact. Weapons, stand by to fire on my mark." The horizon pressed deeper into the asteroid's core, the view screen filled with nothing but jagged rock. Foster's fingers hovered over the fire control, waiting for the perfect moment. "Now!" he shouted. The modified photon torpedoes launched, their energy amplified by Tholian technology. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, the asteroid's core erupted in a blinding explosion. "Full reverse," Foster ordered as the shockwave approached. "Billy, give us everything you've got." The ship bucked and heaved as it fought its way out of the disintegrating asteroid. Billy's energy field flickered and pulsed, barely holding the horizon together as they emerged into open space. As the debris field spread out behind them, Foster's attention snapped to the ongoing battle. Admirals' X-rays, Tholian ships darted and weaved through space, their crystalline structures refracting weapons' fire as they harried the larger Kroloff vessels. "Status report," Foster demanded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Corey's fingers flew over her console. "The asteroid has been fragmented, sir, but there's still a significant debris field on course for Proxima 3. The Kroloff fleet is in disarray, but they're not out of the fight yet." Foster nodded grimly. They had won the first round, but the battle was far from finished. The real challenge lay ahead, protecting Proxima 3 from the asteroid fragments while fending off the remaining Kroloff forces. As he opened a channel to coordinate with the planetary defense systems, Foster couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. Human and Tholian, working together against impossible odds. Perhaps this was the beginning of something truly remarkable. But there was no time to dwell on the future. The present demanded his full attention, and billions of lives hung in the balance. Foster straightened his uniform and began issuing orders, ready to face whatever challenges the next few hours would bring. Foster straightened his uniform and began issuing orders, ready to face whatever challenges the next few hours would present. The battle raged on, with the combined human-Tholian fleet working in perfect synchronization to protect Proxima 3 from both the asteroid fragments and the remaining Kroloff forces. Foster coordinated the efforts from the horizon's bridge, his voice steady as he directed ships to intercept debris and engage enemy vessels. Billy Clark, his hybrid form glowing with energy, used his newfound abilities to deflect smaller fragments away from the planet's atmosphere. Dr. Hayes monitored his vital signs closely, ready to intervene at the first sign of strain. Hours passed in a blur of tactical maneuvers, weapons fire, and tense moments as fragments came dangerously close to breaching Proxima 3's defenses. Finally, as the last Kroloff ship retreated and the debris field dissipated, a collective sigh of relief echoed through the fleet. "Stand down, Red Alert," Foster ordered, his shoulders sagging slightly as the adrenaline began to fade. "All ships, report status." As damage reports flooded in, it became clear that the victory had come at a cost. The Horizon had taken significant damage during its plunge into the asteroid, and several other vessels were limping on emergency power. Lieutenant Corey signaled the fleet. "We're returning to the station for urgent repairs and debriefing," Foster said, his voice tinged with exhaustion. The journey back to the neutral space station was tense, with engineering crews working around the clock to keep damaged systems operational. As they approached, Foster watched through the view screen as the Horizon was gently guided into the station's largest docking bay by tractor beams. The moment they were secure, Chief Engineer Marcus Thompson led a mixed team of human and Tholian engineers onto the ship. Foster met them in the corridor, his uniform still stained with sweat and grime from the battle. "It's not pretty, sir," Thompson reported, his face grim as he handed Foster a datapad. "We've got hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. The warp core is offline, and life support is running on auxiliary power. It's going to take some serious work to get her space-worthy again." Foster nodded, scanning the damage report. "Do what you can, Chief. We may not have much time before we're needed again." As Thompson's team dispersed throughout the ship, Foster's communicator chirped. "Captain Foster, report to Conference Room Alpha immediately. Admiral Coleman and High Counselor Zixtera are waiting," came the crisp voice of a station officer. Foster made his way through the bustling corridors of the station, passing by crews of humans and Tholians working side by side to repair the battle-damaged fleet. He couldn't help but marvel at how quickly their alliance had solidified in the face of common adversity. The conference room door slid open, revealing Admiral Elena Coleman and High Counselor Zixtera, their faces etched with concern. A holographic display flickered to life in the center of the room, showing detailed scans of the defeated Kroloth ships. "Captain," Admiral Coleman began without preamble, "our intelligence officers have made a disturbing discovery. The Kroloth ships were equipped with advanced cloaking technology, far beyond their known capabilities." Foster leaned in, studying the intricate schematics. "This changes everything," he murmured. "Where did they get this technology?" High Counselor Zixtera's crystalline form shimmered as he spoke. "That is the question we must answer, Captain. This development could shift the balance of power in the entire sector." As they discussed the implications of this new threat, Foster's mind raced with possibilities. The Kroloth had always been a formidable enemy, but with this level of technological advancement, they posed an even greater danger to both human and Tholian space. Their meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from the medical bay. Dr. Jonathan Hayes appeared on a nearby screen, his expression a mix of excitement and concern. "Captain, you need to see this," Hayes said, gesturing to a figure behind him. "It's about Lieutenant Clark." Foster excused himself and hurried to the medical bay, where he found Billy Clark undergoing a battery of tests. The young officer's hybrid form seemed more stable, his human features blending seamlessly with Tholian crystalline structures. "His cellular structure has further stabilized," Dr. Hayes explained, pointing to a series of complex bioreadings. "He has even greater control over his abilities now, but..." "But what, Doctor?" Foster pressed. Hayes hesitated, glancing at Billy. "The transformation is becoming increasingly irreversible. He's no longer just a human with Tholian abilities. He's becoming something entirely new." Before Foster could process this information, his communicator chirped again. It was Security Chief Michael Rodriguez, his voice tense with urgency. "Captain, I've just received an encrypted transmission from one of our undercover operatives. You're going to want to see this immediately." Foster's day, it seemed, was just getting started. As he left the medical bay, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The alliance between humans and Tholians had already reshaped their corner of the galaxy, but now, with the Kroloth threat looming larger than ever, he knew that even greater challenges and perhaps opportunities lay ahead. With a deep breath, Foster steeled himself for whatever revelation awaited him in Rodriguez's office. The fate of two species, and perhaps the entire sector, might well depend on their next moves. Foster strode into Rodriguez's office, his mind still processing the revelations about Billy Clark's condition. The security chief stood hunched over a console, his face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the screen. "What have you got for me, Chief?" Foster asked, moving to stand beside Rodriguez. The security chief tapped a few commands, and a series of encrypted messages appeared on the screen. Our operative managed to intercept communications between high-ranking Kroloth officers. They're discussing a secret base where they're developing new technologies, including the advanced cloaking systems we encountered. Foster's eyes narrowed as he scanned the information. "Do we have a location?" Rodriguez nodded grimly. We do, but it's deep in Kroloth territory. Getting there undetected would be nearly impossible with our current technology. As if on cue, the door to the office slid open, revealing Admiral Coleman and High Counselor Zixtera. Coleman's expression was a mix of concern and willpower. Captain, she said, we've been briefed on the situation. The Joint Command has made a decision. We're authorizing a covert mission to investigate this Kroloth base. High Counselor Zixtera's crystalline form shimmered as he spoke. We have a prototype stealth ship, a hybrid of human and Tholian technology. It's called the Shadow Weaver. If any vessel can penetrate Kroloth defenses, it's this one. Foster felt a surge of anticipation. When do we leave? Immediately, Coleman replied. We're pulling together a small elite crew. You will be in command, Captain, with Admiral ZYXRA as your second. Within hours, Foster found himself standing on the bridge of the Shadow Weaver. The ship hummed with energy, its sleek design unlike anything he'd ever seen. Chief Engineer Marcus Thompson had insisted on joining the mission, despite the ongoing repairs on the horizon. All systems are green, Captain, Thompson reported from his station. The cloaking field is stable and functioning at peak efficiency. Foster nodded, settling into the command chair. Helm, set course for the coordinates provided by intelligence. Let's see what this ship can do. As the Shadow Weaver slipped out of the station's docking bay, its cloaking field engaged, rendering it invisible to both eyes and sensors. The ship accelerated smoothly, the stars outside the view screen blurring into streaks of light. Their journey deep into Kroloth space was tense but uneventful. However, as they approached the star system housing the secret base, alarms began to blare across the bridge. Captain, Thompson called out, his fingers flying over his console. We've got a problem. The cloaking field is destabilizing. There's some kind of interference between the human and Tholian systems. Foster leaned forward in his chair. Can you fix it? Thompson shook his head, frustration evident in his voice. I'm trying, but the interactions are unpredictable. If I can't stabilize it soon, we'll be visible to every Kroloth sensor in the sector. As Thompson worked frantically to stabilize the cloaking field, Foster and Admiral ZYXRA huddled over the tactical display. The enhanced sensor array developed by Thompson was revealing a complex network of hidden satellites surrounding the star system. This detection grid is incredibly sophisticated, ZYXRA observed, his crystalline form pulsing with concern. Even with our cloaking technology functioning perfectly, penetrating this undetected would be challenging. Foster nodded grimly, his mind racing through possibilities. Suddenly, Lieutenant Billy Clark stepped forward, his hybrid form glowing faintly. Captain, Billy said, his voice steady despite the visible strain on his features, I think I might have a solution. I could use my energy manipulation abilities to create a field around the ship that mimics the background radiation of space. It would essentially make us invisible to the detection grid. Dr. Hayes, who had been monitoring Billy's condition closely, spoke up immediately. Captain, I must advise against this. The strain on Lieutenant Clark's system could be severe. We don't fully understand the limits of his new physiology. Foster looked between Billy and Dr. Hayes, weighing the risks against the importance of their mission. After a moment of tense silence, he made his decision. We proceed with Lieutenant Clark's plan, Foster declared. Billy, are you sure you're up for this? Billy nodded, dedication etched across his face. Yes, sir, I can do this. As they approached the outer perimeter of the Kroloth detection grid, Billy took up position in the center of the bridge. He closed his eyes, concentrating intensely as he began to channel vast amounts of energy. The air around him shimmered and crackled with power. Slowly, a translucent field of energy enveloped the Shadow Weaver. On the display, Foster watched as they passed through the first layer of Kroloth defenses undetected. But their elation was short-lived. "Captain," the helm officer called out, "we're detecting a massive debris field ahead. It looks like destroyed ships and stations." Foster's teeth clenched as he took in the sight before them. The graveyard of vessels stretching out as far as the eye could see told a chilling story of the Kroloth's ruthless testing of their stolen technology. "Steady as she goes," Foster ordered. "Navigate us through carefully." The Shadow Weaver picked its way through the debris field, making constant course corrections to avoid collision. The strain of maintaining the energy field while traversing this hazardous area was clearly taking its toll on Billy. His form flickered and pulsed erratically, sweat beading on his forehead. Suddenly, Billy let out a gasp of pain and collapsed to the deck. Dr. Hayes rushed to his side, medical tricorder in hand. "His vital signs are critical," Hayes reported urgently. "We need to get him to sickbay immediately." As Billy was rushed off the bridge, the protective energy field around the ship dissipated, leaving them exposed in the heart of Kroloth territory. Foster turned to Admiral ZYXRA, tension etched across his face. "Admiral, we're vulnerable. Any ideas?" ZYXRA's crystalline form seemed to pulse with concentration. Then, to Foster's surprise, the Tholian began to vibrate, emitting a low, resonant hum. The air around ZYXRA shimmered, and Foster felt a strange distortion wash over the bridge. "An ancient Tholian technique," ZYXRA explained, his voice strained. "It creates a localized distortion field. Not as effective as Clark's abilities, but it should help mask our presence." With ZYXRA's distortion field providing some cover, the Shadow Weaver pressed on towards the planet housing the Kroloth base. As they entered orbit, the true scale of the Kroloth operation became clear. A massive space station loomed before them, its design an unsettling amalgamation of various alien technologies. Foster ordered a covert scan, hoping to gather crucial intelligence on the Kroloth's capabilities and plans. But as the scan initiated, a sudden power surge ripped through the ship's systems. Alarms blared as the surge triggered a brief but detectable energy spike. "They've spotted us," Thompson shouted from his station. "The Kroloth are mobilizing their defense fleet." Foster gripped the arms of his command chair, his mind racing. They had lost the element of surprise, and now faced a critical decision. As he opened his mouth to give an order, a new alert caught his attention. "Captain," the science officer called out, "we're detecting a prisoner transport ship docking with the Kroloth station." "The manifest?" "Sir, they're holding captive scientists and engineers. Humans, Tholians, and others." Foster's blood ran cold as he processed this new information. The mission had just become far more complicated, with the lives of innocent prisoners now hanging in the balance. As Kroloth patrol ships began to swarm towards their position, Foster knew that his next decision would shape the course of not only this mission, but potentially the entire human-Tholian alliance. Time seemed to slow as Foster weighed his options. The fate of his crew, the captive scientists, and the vital intelligence they sought all resting on his shoulders. With Kroloth forces closing in and the Shadow Weaver systems still reeling from the power surge, Foster drew in a deep breath, prepared to give the order that would determine their path forward in this increasingly perilous mission. Situation. Foster's mind raced, weighing the lives of his crew against the potential intelligence they could gather and the prisoners they might save. In a split-second decision, he leaned forward in his command chair and spoke with unwavering tenacity. "Maintain position at the edge of their sensor range," Foster ordered, his voice cutting through the tension on the bridge. "Chief Thompson, I need you to repurpose our communication array. We're going to create a blind spot in their detection grid." Thompson's eyebrows shot up, but he nodded quickly. "Aye, Captain. I'll get right on it." As Thompson set to work, Foster turned to Billy Clark, who had just staggered back onto the bridge, his hybrid form still flickering with residual energy. "Lieutenant, I have a task for you, but it's risky," Foster said, his eyes locked on Billy's. Billy straightened, his commitment evident despite his weakened state. "Whatever you need, Captain." Foster explained his plan to have Billy interface with the Kroloff station's computer systems. Dr. Hayes, overhearing the conversation, immediately protested. "Captain, the neurological strain could be catastrophic," Hayes warned, his medical tricorder already scanning Billy's vital signs. Billy locked eyes with Foster. "I can do this, sir. Let me help." After a moment's hesitation, Foster nodded. "Proceed, but at the first sign of severe distress, we pull you out. Clear?" "Crystal, sir," Billy replied, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. As Billy was escorted to a specially designed isolation chamber, Foster turned to Admiral ZYXRA. "Admiral, we need to prepare for a potential rescue operation. Can you work with our Tholian crew members to modify the transporters?" ZYXRA's crystalline form shimmered with what Foster had come to recognize as enthusiasm. "Of course, Captain. We'll ensure we can safely extract any prisoners, regardless of their species." The bridge buzzed with activity as the crew worked to implement Foster's multi-pronged plan. Thompson's fingers flew over his console, rerouting power and reconfiguring systems. "Electromagnetic interference beam ready, Captain," Thompson reported after several tense minutes. "Activating now." On the main view screen, a narrow corridor of censored darkness appeared, stretching from the Shadow Weaver to the Kroloff station. Foster knew this was their window of opportunity, but it also increased their risk of detection. Suddenly, Billy's voice came through the comm system, strained but triumphant. "Captain, I'm in. I've breached their outer security protocols. Sending you the layout of the prison levels and prisoner locations now." Foster studied the incoming data, quickly formulating an extraction plan. He selected a small team, himself, Admiral ZYXRA, and 2 Tholian security officers. As they equipped themselves with experimental phase shift devices, a new alert sounded on the bridge. "Captain," the science officer called out, her voice tense. "A large Kroloff warship just entered the system. It appears to be their flagship, sir." Foster's face hardened. Their window of opportunity was rapidly closing. "We move now," he declared, leading his team to the transporter room. As they materialized in a secluded maintenance corridor on the Kroloff station, Foster activated his phase shift device. The sensation of passing through solid matter was disconcerting, but it allowed them to navigate the heavily guarded areas undetected. They reached the prison level, systematically freeing the captive scientists. Among them, they found a Tholian physicist named Lyra, who ZYXRA identified as Dr. Alera's long-lost sister. The brief reunion between the Tholian siblings was a poignant reminder of what was at stake. As they worked, Foster's communicator chirped softly. It was Dr. Hayes, his voice tight with concern. "Captain, Billy's condition is deteriorating rapidly. His body temperature is reaching critical levels." Foster felt a pang of guilt, but they couldn't stop now. "Understood, Doctor. Do what you can for him. We're almost done here." They had just freed the last group of prisoners when alarms began blaring throughout the station. Their presence had been discovered. Foster quickly led the group through a series of maintenance shafts and rarely used corridors, relying on Billy's weakening guidance to avoid Kroloff patrols. As they neared the transport point, they encountered a squad of heavily armed Kroloff soldiers. Admiral ZYXRA stepped forward, his crystalline body deflecting energy blasts as he engaged the enemies. Foster stayed to assist human and Tholian fighting side by side in a display of their newfound alliance. With the immediate threat neutralized, they rushed to the transport point. Foster tapped his communicator. "Shadow Weaver, we're ready for extraction. Energize." But nothing happened. The Krolotha's jamming technology had activated, interfering with the transporter signal. Foster's mind raced, searching for a solution. Suddenly, Billy's voice came through the comm, weak but determined. "Captain, I can override the jamming field, but it'll take everything I've got." Before Foster could protest, he felt the familiar tingle of the transporter beam. They materialized on the Shadow Weaver's pad, but Foster's relief was short-lived as he saw Billy collapse on the bridge, his body glowing with an intense, otherworldly energy. As Dr. Hayes rushed to attend to Billy, Foster took command of the bridge. The Kroloff flagship loomed before them, its weapons powering up. "Thompson, emergency warp jump now," Foster ordered. The Shadow Weaver lurched into warp, narrowly avoiding a barrage of weapons fire. As they raced away from the Kroloff system, Foster knew that their actions had irrevocably changed the course of the conflict. They had rescued valuable prisoners and gathered critical intelligence, but at what cost? With the Kroloffs surely in pursuit and Billy's condition unknown, Foster turned his attention to their next moves. The rescued scientists needed medical attention, and the information they gathered could tip the balance of power in the sector. As the Shadow Weaver streaked through space, Foster began to formulate their next steps in this increasingly complex interstellar chess game. The Shadow Weaver streaked through space, leaving the Kroloff system behind, but the danger was nowhere near the end. Suddenly, the ship lurched violently, throwing Foster against his command chair. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge consoles as alarms blared. "Report," Foster barked, steadying himself. Chief Engineer Marcus Thompson's voice crackled over the comm, strained and urgent. "Captain, the emergency warp jump has put immense stress on our systems. We're experiencing cascading failures across multiple subsystems." Foster's expression resolute. "Can you stabilize us, Chief?" "I'm working on it, sir," Thompson replied, the sound of frantic typing audible in the background. "Rerouting power from non-essential systems to maintain our speed, but it's touch and go." As Thompson fought to keep the ship together, Foster turned his attention to their rescued prisoners. "Dr. Hayes, status on our guests?" The doctor's face appeared on the main view screen, his expression grim. "We've got them in medical bay, Captain. Some are in critical condition, but we're doing everything we can." Foster nodded. Then his eyes widened as he saw Billy Clark's unconscious form behind Hayes, the young officer's body pulsing with an eerie, otherworldly glow. "Doctor, what's happening to Billy?" Foster asked, unable to hide the concern in his voice. Hayes shook his head, frustration evident. "I've never seen anything like it, Captain. His human and Tholian physiologies are in a constant state of flux. It's causing severe physical distress." As if on cue, Billy's body convulsed, the glow intensifying. Hayes rushed to his side, barking orders to his medical team. Foster gripped the arms of his chair, feeling the weight of command pressing down on him. They had the prisoners, they had the intelligence, but at what cost? "Captain," the science officer called out, interrupting Foster's thoughts. "I've created a secure database for the Kroloff intelligence we gathered. Should I assign a team to begin analysis?" Foster nodded. "Yes, get our best human and Tholian analysts on it immediately. We need to uncover any weaknesses in the Kroloff defenses." As the crew worked feverishly to stabilize the ship and tend to their wounded, Foster's attention was drawn to the long-range sensors. His heart sank as he saw a group of blips rapidly approaching their position. "Kroloff pursuit vessels," he muttered, his mind racing through possible strategies. "Sir," Thompson's voice came through again, "our experimental cloaking technology is offline. The damage from our escape was too severe." Foster took a deep breath, weighing his options. Push their already strained engines to the breaking point, or prepare for a confrontation. The lives of his crew, the rescued prisoners, and the vital intelligence they carried all hung in the balance. After a moment's deliberation, Foster made his decision. "Helm, Take us out of warp. Set a course for the nearby asteroid field." The officer at the helm looked back, confusion evident on his face. "Sir, you heard me, Ensign," Foster said, his voice firm. "We're going to use that field to our advantage. Our ship may be wounded, but she's still more maneuverable than those Kroloff behemoths." As the Shadow Weaver dropped out of warp, the asteroid field loomed before them, a chaotic maze of rocky bodies ranging from pebbles to small moons. Foster turned to Thompson, who had just entered the bridge, his uniform stained with coolant and grease. "Chief, I need you to work your magic on our shields. Can you modify them to withstand glancing impacts from the smaller asteroids?" Thompson's eyes lit up with the challenge. "Aye, Captain. Give me 10 minutes, and I'll have us bouncing off rocks like a rubber ball." As Thompson set to work, Foster addressed the bridge crew. "Listen up, everyone. We're about to play a game of cat and mouse with the Kroloff. Our lives and the fate of this mission depend on your skill and focus. Are you with me?" A chorus of determined "Aye, sir," echoed across the bridge. Foster allowed himself a small smile. "All right, then. Helm, take us in. Nice and easy." The Shadow Weaver glided into the asteroid field, its modified shield shimmering as small rocks bounced harmlessly off its hull. Foster watched the sensor readings intently, tracking the approaching Kroloff ships. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "Kroloff vessels entering the asteroid field. They're splitting up to search for us." Foster nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. "Deploy our modified probes. Let's give them some ghosts to chase." As the probes scattered throughout the asteroid field, each emitting a signal mimicking the Shadow Weaver's energy signature, Foster turned to Admiral ZYXRA, who had been quietly observing from his station. "Admiral," Foster said, "I have a feeling we're going to need some Tholian ingenuity to get out of this one. Any ideas?" ZYXRA's crystalline form shimmered with what Foster had come to recognize as excitement. "Indeed, Captain. I believe we can turn this entire asteroid field into our own personal sensor array." As ZYXRA explained his plan, Foster felt a glimmer of hope. They were still in danger, still pursued, but they weren't out of the fight yet. With human willpower and Tholian innovation, they just might make it out of this asteroid field alive and change the course of the war in the process. With human willpower and Tholian innovation, they just might make it out of this asteroid field alive and change the course of the war in the process. Hours of tense maneuvering through the treacherous asteroid field left the crew of the Shadow Weaver exhausted but triumphant. Captain Foster's strategic use of the modified probes, combined with Admiral ZYXRA's ingenious plan to turn the asteroids into a makeshift sensor array, had allowed them to evade the pursuing Kroloff vessels. As they emerged from the field, Foster immediately set a course for the nearest Allied starbase. "Helm, maximum warp to starbase Epsilon 7, he ordered, his voice betraying a mix of relief and urgency. The Shadow Weaver limped through space, its hybrid systems pushed to their limits. Chief Engineer Thompson worked tirelessly in engineering, coaxing every ounce of power from the strained engines. As they approached the starbase, Foster could see the bustling hub of human and Tholian cooperation growing larger on the display. "Starbase Epsilon 7, this is Captain James Foster of the Shadow Weaver requesting immediate docking and medical assistance," Foster transmitted, his fingers gripping the arms of his command chair. "Shadow Weaver, this is Starbase Epsilon 7. You are cleared for emergency docking at Bay 4, came the swift reply. As the ship glided into the docking bay, Foster turned to his crew. "Excellent work, everyone. Now, let's get our guests the help they need." The moment the docking clamps engaged, a flurry of activity erupted. Medical teams rushed aboard, led by the Starbase Chief Medical Officer. Foster directed them to the rescued scientists, emphasizing the critical nature of their conditions. "Dr. Hayes," Foster called out as he spotted the Shadow Weaver's medical officer. "What's Billy's status?" Hayes' expression was grim but determined. "He's stable for now, Captain, but we need to get him to the specialized containment unit immediately." Foster nodded, watching as Billy's unconscious form was carefully transferred to a hovering medical pod. The young officer's body still pulsed with an otherworldly glow, drawing concerned looks from the Starbase medical staff. As the medical teams worked, Foster made his way to the Starbase Command Center. Commander Adrian Reeves, a tall, imposing figure with a shock of silver hair, greeted him at the entrance. "Captain Foster," Reeves said, extending his hand. "I've heard reports of your mission. Quite the daring rescue, if I may say so." Foster shook Reeves' hand firmly. "Thank you, Commander, but we're not out of the woods yet. We've gathered critical intelligence on Kroloth technology and plans. I believe it could change the course of this war." Reeves' eyes widened slightly. "Then we have no time to waste. Let's review your findings immediately." The two officers spent the next several hours poring over the data, their faces illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. As the scale of their discovery became clear, Reeves initiated a secure transmission to Alliance headquarters. "We need an emergency summit of human and Tholian leadership," Reeves declared. "This information is too vital to sit on." Meanwhile, in the Starbase Engineering Bay, Chief Engineer Thompson coordinated with a mix of human and Tholian technicians. The Shadow Weaver's unique hybrid systems presented a challenge that required innovative thinking. No, Thompson said, gesturing at a complex schematic. "We need to approach this from a different angle. The Tholian crystal matrix isn't just a power source. It's an integral part of the ship's structure." A young Tholian engineer stepped forward, his crystalline body shimmering with excitement. "What if we realign the matrix to channel energy through the human-designed conduits? It could create a synergy we haven't seen before." Thompson's face lit up. "Brilliant. Let's give it a try." In the medical bay, Dr. Hayes and Tholian physicist Lyra worked side by side, their attention focused on Billy Clark's containment unit. The Starbase advanced medical equipment hummed and beeped, monitoring every fluctuation in Billy's hybrid physiology. "His human and Tholian cellular structures are in a constant state of flux," Hayes muttered, studying a complex readout. Lyra's crystalline form shifted, a sign of deep concentration. "Perhaps we can use a modified version of Tholian energy harmonics to stabilize the oscillation." As they worked, Admiral ZYXR entered the medical bay. His presence immediately commanded attention, even as he moved to stand beside his sister. "Lyra," he said, his tone softer than usual, "I need your expertise. We're establishing a command center to analyze the Kroloth data. Your knowledge of Tholian physics could be crucial." Lyra looked torn, her gaze shifting between Billy's containment unit and her brother. Hayes nodded encouragingly. "Go. We've made good progress here. I'll continue monitoring Billy's condition." As Lyra left with ZYXR, Foster's voice came over the Starbase communication system. "Attention all personnel. In light of recent events, we're implementing increased security measures. All departments are to report any unusual activities immediately." Throughout the Starbase, crews began installing advanced sensor arrays and upgrading defensive systems. The lessons learned from their encounters with the Kroloth were being put into practice, transforming Epsilon 7 into a fortified outpost on the frontier of Alliance space. In the midst of this controlled chaos, the rescued scientists began to recover. As they regained their strength, they eagerly shared their knowledge with Alliance researchers, filling in crucial gaps in their understanding of Kroloth technology. Foster watched this collaboration from the Starbase observation deck, a sense of cautious optimism growing within him. They had achieved something remarkable, but he knew that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. The Kroloth would not take this setback lightly, and the Alliance needed to be prepared for their response. As if in answer to his thoughts, a junior officer approached him, her expression tense. Captain Foster, Sir long-range sensors have detected unusual activity near the Kroloff border. Multiple unidentified ships using advanced cloaking technology. Foster's eyes sharp. The Kroloff were probing their defenses, testing for weaknesses. He thought back to their improvised sensor array in the asteroid field, an idea forming in his mind. "Get me Commander Reeves and Admiral ZYXRA," he said, his voice filled with tenacity. "I think I know how we can counter these incursions." As the officer hurried off, Foster turned back to the observation window, his gaze fixed on the stars beyond. The Shadow Weaver's mission had been just the beginning. Now, the real work of forging a united front against the Kroloff threat was about to begin. Now, the real work of forging a united front against the Kroloff threat was about to begin. Foster's calm badge chirped, interrupting his thoughts. "Captain, your presence is requested in the main conference room." Commander Reeves' voice came through. "The emergency summit is convening." "On my way," Foster replied, taking one last look at the stars before striding purposefully towards the turbolift. The conference room buzzed with tension as Foster entered. Human and Tholian leaders sat around a large oval table, their faces etched with concern. Admiral ZYXRA stood at the head of the table, his crystalline form glowing with an intense blue light. "Captain Foster," ZYXRA acknowledged, "please, present your findings." Foster stepped forward, activating a holographic display in the center of the table. Images of Kroloff ships and weapons flickered to life, rotating slowly as he spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you're seeing is the result of our mission aboard the Shadow Weaver," Foster began. "The Kroloff threat is more advanced and imminent than we initially believed." For the next hour, Foster and ZYXRA detailed their discoveries, presenting evidence of Kroloff technological advancements and strategic plans. The room grew increasingly somber as the full scale of the threat became apparent. As Foster concluded his presentation, a human admiral leaned forward. "This is grave news indeed. What do you propose we do?" ZYXRA's form shimmered. "We must formalize our alliance. Only through complete cooperation can we hope to withstand the coming storm." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. After a brief deliberation, a vote was called. The decision was unanimous. The Joint Defense Initiative would be established, uniting human and Tholian forces against the Kroloff threat. "Captain Foster," the human admiral addressed him, "given your experience with the Shadow Weaver, we're assigning you to oversee the rapid deployment of hybrid ships based on its design. You'll be working closely with both human and Tholian Naval Command." Foster nodded, his mind already racing with the logistical challenges ahead. "I understand. Sir, I'll get started immediately." As the summit adjourned, Foster found himself swept up in a whirlwind of activity. He coordinated with shipyards across human and Tholian space, overseeing the retooling of facilities to accommodate the new hybrid ship specifications. Days blurred into weeks as Foster worked tirelessly, splitting his time between the starbase and various shipyards. He watched with a mix of pride and urgency as the first of the new hybrid ships took shape, their sleek hulls incorporating both human and Tholian design elements. During a rare moment of downtime, Foster received an update on Lieutenant Billy Clark's condition. Dr. Hayes' voice crackled over the comm system. "Captain, you need to see this," Hayes said, excitement evident in his tone. Foster made his way to the medical bay, where he found Hayes and Lyra huddled around a series of complex readouts. Billy Clark stood in the center of the room, his body emitting a soft, pulsating glow. "Watch this," Hayes said, nodding to Billy. Clark raised his hand, and suddenly, the nearby medical equipment sprang to life. Displays flickered, changing readouts without any physical interaction. "He's interfacing directly with the technology," Lyra explained, her crystalline form shimmering with excitement. both human and Tholian systems. Foster watched in amazement as Billy manipulated energy fields, creating intricate patterns in the air. "This is incredible," he breathed. "Have you informed the Joint Defense Initiative?" Hayes nodded. "They've classified him as a strategic asset. He'll be working with a specialized research team to explore the full extent of his abilities." As Foster left the medical bay, his comm badge chirped again. It was Marcus Thompson, calling from one of the border systems. "Captain, we've finished deploying the first section of the crystalline sensor network," Thompson reported. "Initial tests show it's even more effective than we hoped. We're detecting Kroloff movements we never could have seen before." Foster allowed himself a small smile. "Excellent work, Chief. Keep me updated on the full deployment." As he made his way back to the command center, Foster's mind raced with the implications of these developments. The Alliance was making rapid progress, but would it be enough? The Kroloff weren't sitting idle, and reports of raids on outlying colonies were increasing. Foster's thoughts were interrupted by a flashing alert on the main display. A cluster of unidentified ships had just appeared on the edge of the new sensor network. "Red alert," Foster called out, his voice cutting through the sudden tension on the bridge. "This is not a drill. All hands to battle stations." As klaxons blared and crew members rushed to their posts, Foster took a deep breath. The true test of the Alliance was about to begin. The familiar surge of adrenaline coursed through Foster's veins as he assessed the situation unfolding before him. "Status report," he barked, his eyes fixed on the main tactical display. "Multiple Kroloff signatures detected, sir," a young ensign reported, her fingers flying over the controls. "They're using advanced cloaking technology, but our new sensors are picking them up." Foster nodded, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Looks like we get to test our new toys sooner than expected. Signal the Fleet Battle Formation Delta, and get me a direct line to the Shadow Weaver." As the bridge erupted into a flurry of activity, Foster watched the Alliance ships move into position with practiced precision. The once disparate human and Tholian vessels now moved as one, a testament to the weeks of joint training and preparation. "Captain, I have the Shadow Weaver for you," the communications officer announced. "Foster the Shadow Weaver," he said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "Lieutenant Clark, are you ready?" Billy's voice came through, tinged with a strange resonance that sent a shiver down Foster's spine. "Affirmative, Captain. I'm fully integrated with the ship systems. We're detecting fluctuations in the Kroloff cloaking fields. Transmitting data to the fleet now." Foster watched as new information flooded the tactical displays, revealing the true extent of the Kroloff formation. It was an impressive sight. Dozens of warships arranged in a classic pincer formation, designed to envelope and crush any opposing force. But the Kroloff hadn't counted on the Alliance's new capabilities. "All ships, this is Captain Foster," he announced, his voice carried across the entire fleet. "Execute Operation Shattered Mirror. Let's show these bastards what we can do." The Shadow Weaver surged forward, leading a wedge of hybrid vessels straight into the heart of the Kroloff formation. Foster watched in awe as Billy's enhanced control allowed the ship to weave through enemy fire with impossible grace, its weapons striking with pinpoint accuracy. On the fringes of the battle, Foster spotted the distinctive crystalline forms of Admiral Zite's Tholian squadron. They moved in complex, geometric patterns that seemed to defy standard naval tactics. Yet as Foster watched, he saw the brilliance of the strategy unfold. The Tholian ships, now armed with human-designed weapons, unleashed a devastating barrage. Kroloff shields flickered and failed under the assault, their formation beginning to crumble. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "Chief Thompson reports the energy disruptors are ready for deployment." Foster nodded. "Tell him he has a green light. Let's clip their wings." Moments later, a swarm of modified probes shot out from the Alliance ships, weaving between the battling vessels. As they activated, Foster saw several Kroloff ships suddenly lose power, drifting helplessly in space. The battle raged on, the Alliance slowly but surely gaining the upper hand. Foster allowed himself a moment of cautious optimism. They were doing it. They were actually pushing the Kroloff back. But then, a new threat emerged. "Captain," Billy's voice crackled over the comm, urgent and strained. "The Kroloff flagship is powering up some kind of new weapon system. Our shields won't." His words were cut off as a blinding beam of energy lanced out from the Kroloff flagship, cutting through the Alliance formation smoothly. Foster watched in horror as several ships, both human and Tholian, erupted into fireballs or drifted away, crippled. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Foster ordered, his mind racing to find a solution. "Concentrate fire on that flagship." But the Kroloff vessel's defenses held firm against the Alliance's assault. Foster gritted his teeth, knowing they needed to take out that ship or the entire battle could turn against them. Suddenly, the Shadow Weaver shot forward, moving faster than Foster had ever seen a ship move. He realized with a start what was happening. "Billy, no!" he shouted into the comm. "You can't channel that much energy through the ship systems. You'll burn yourself out." But there was no response. Foster could only watch as the Shadow Weaver closed in on the Kroloff flagship, its weapons blazing with an intensity that shouldn't have been possible. "All ships, support the Shadow Weaver," Foster ordered. "Concentrate all fire on the coordinates they're targeting." The combined firepower of the Alliance fleet, led by the supercharged Shadow Weaver, finally overwhelmed the Kroloff flagship's defenses. Foster watched with a mix of awe and concern as the massive enemy vessel broke apart, secondary explosions rippling along its hull. With their command ship destroyed and their formation in tatters, the remaining Kroloff vessels began to retreat. Foster was tempted to press the advantage, to crush the enemy once and for all. But as he looked at the damage reports flooding in, he knew they had pushed their luck far enough for one day. "All ships hold position," he ordered. "Secure the battlefield and begin rescue operations. Prior short story ties our people, but render aid to any Kroloff survivors as well." As the adrenaline of battle began to fade, Foster turned his attention to the Shadow Weaver. Foster to Shadow Weaver. "Billy, do you read me?" There was a long, tense moment of silence before a weak voice responded. "I'm here, Captain, but I think I might have overdone it a bit." Foster allowed himself a small smile of relief. "Sit tight, Lieutenant. We'll get you patched up." He turned to his communications officer. "Get me a status report on the Shadow Weaver and have medical teams standing by in the hangar." As Foster began coordinating the aftermath of the battle, a new alert caught his attention. He looked up at the long-range sensor display and felt his blood run cold. A massive wave of Kroloff reinforcements was bearing down on their position. Foster straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. They had won the battle, but the war was not nearly finished. He began issuing orders, preparing the fleet for the next phase of the conflict. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for certain. The human-Tholian alliance would face it together. Together. The Kroloff weren't finished yet, and neither were they. "All ships form up," Foster ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Defensive perimeter, layered formation. Damage vessels to the center." The Alliance fleet moved with practiced precision, the remaining operational ships creating a protective shell around their wounded comrades. Foster watched as the Shadow Weaver, still trailing wisps of plasma from its battle scars, was guided into the heart of the formation. "Engineering team, report." Foster barked into his comm. Chief Engineer Marcus Thompson's voice crackled through, strained but determined. "We're on it, Captain. I've got human and Tholian crews working in tandem. It's a sight to see, sir." Foster allowed himself a small nod of approval. "Make it happen, Chief. We need every ship we can get back online." On the main view screen, Foster could see the flurry of activity as repair shuttles darted between damaged vessels. Tholian crystal bonding techniques merged seamlessly with human welding methods, creating a patchwork of repairs that was as beautiful as it was functional. "Captain," his communications officer interrupted. "Incoming transmission from the Shadow Weaver." "It's Dr. Hayes." Foster's heart sank. "Put him through." Dr. Jonathan Hayes' face appeared on the screen, his expression grave. "Captain, it's Lieutenant Clark. His condition is unstable." Foster leaned forward, his knuckles tightening as he gripped the edge of his command chair. "How bad is it, Doctor?" Hayes shook his head. "The energy manipulation during the battle has accelerated the integration of his human and Tholian physiology. I've got him in a modified containment field, but—" He trailed off, his professional demeanor cracking for a moment. "Do whatever you have to, Doctor," Foster said, his voice low. "We can't lose him." As Hayes nodded and the transmission cut off, Foster turned to see Admiral Zexoray's crystalline form shimmering into view beside him. "Captain," the Tholian's voice resonated through the bridge, "I have sent a request for reinforcements through our new network. The Joint Defense Initiative will respond." Foster nodded, grateful for the Admiral's initiative. "Thank you, Admiral. We'll need every ship we can get." As if on cue, the tactical officer called out, "Sir, long-range sensors are picking up a new fleet approaching." It's ours, sir. Joint Defense Initiative ships, led by Commander Reeves." A ripple of hope spread through the bridge crew. Foster allowed himself a small smile. Looks like the cavalry's arriving just in time. But the moment of relief was short-lived. Another alert blared, and the tactical display lit up with dozens of new contacts. "Kroloth reinforcements," the tactical officer announced, her voice tight. "They're deploying into attack formation." Foster's mind raced, analyzing the new threat. "I'm seeing new ship designs in their formation. They've been busy too." Just then, his console lit up with an incoming transmission. "Captain," the communications officer said, "we're receiving a data packet from Starbase Epsilon 7. It's marked urgent, from Dr. Ilera and Lyra." Foster's eyebrows rose. "Put it through to my station." As he scanned the information, his eyes widened. "They've done it," he breathed. "They've found a way to disrupt the Kroloth cloaking technology." He stood, addressing the bridge crew. "I want every available engineer working on implementing these modifications to our sensor arrays. Priority 1. As the crew sprang into action, Foster turned to Admiral ZYXRA. "Admiral, I have an idea for a new defensive strategy. Something that combines human unpredictability with Tholian precision." The Tholian's crystalline structure pulsed with interest. "I'm listening, Captain." Foster outlined his plan for a dynamic defense formation, inspired by Tholian crystal lattices, but incorporating the enhanced maneuverability of their hybrid ships. As he spoke, holographic projections sprang to life, illustrating the complex, ever-shifting patterns. "Fascinating," ZYXRA hummed. "A strategy that is both rigid and fluid. The Kroloth will find it disconcerting." As the Alliance fleet began to adopt the new formation, another alert sounded. "Captain," the communications officer called out, her voice tinged with confusion. "We're receiving a transmission from within Kroloth space." Foster frowned. "A trap?" "Unknown. Sir, it's heavily encrypted, but what we can decipher. It seems to be from some kind of resistance movement." Foster's mind raced with the possibilities. Get Security Chief Rodriguez on it immediately. If this is genuine, it could change everything. As Rodriguez and his team began their analysis, Foster turned back to the main view screen. The Kroloth fleet loomed ever closer, a dark mass of destructive potential bearing down on them. Foster took a deep breath, steadying himself for what was to come. The modifications to their ships were still underway, Rodriguez was racing to verify the mysterious transmission, and the full strength of the Joint Defense Initiative had yet to arrive. "All ships," Foster called out, his voice carrying across the entire fleet. "Prepare for engagement. This is the moment we've trained for. Human, Tholian, it doesn't matter now. We're all in this together." As the first wave of Kroloff ships entered weapons range, Foster gave the order that would ignite the next phase of the battle. "Fire at will." "Will." Foster's voice rang out clear and confident across the bridge as the first volley of Alliance weapons streaked towards the Kroloff fleet. The space between the two forces erupted in a dazzling display of energy discharges and explosions. Foster watched intently as his new defensive strategy unfolded before him. The Alliance ships moved in perfect synchronization, their formation constantly shifting and adapting like a living organism. "Admiral ZYXRA, initiate pattern Theta 3, Foster ordered, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. The Tholian's crystalline form pulsed in acknowledgement. Moments later, the Alliance fleet's movements became even more intricate, weaving an ever-changing tapestry of defensive and offensive positions. On the main view screen, Foster could see the confusion spreading through the Kroloff ranks. Their usual tactics, relying heavily on brute force and overwhelming numbers, were suddenly rendered ineffective against the Alliance's fluid defense. "Sir, the anti-cloaking modifications are online," the tactical officer reported, her voice tinged with excitement. "Detecting multiple hidden Kroloff vessels. Targeting solutions acquired." Foster allowed himself a grim smile. "Fire at will. Let's show them they can't hide anymore." A barrage of precision strikes lanced out from the Alliance ships, finding their marks with unerring accuracy. Several Kroloff vessels, caught completely off guard, erupted into silent fireballs. As the battle intensified, Foster's attention was drawn to the Shadow Weaver. The ship moved with an almost supernatural grace, always seeming to be one step ahead of the Kroloff attacks. "Foster to Shadow Weaver," he called out. "Billy, how are you holding up?" There was a moment of static before Billy's strained voice came through. "I'm managing, Captain. The ship and I were in sync. It's incredible." Foster nodded, relief and concern warring within him. "Keep it up, Lieutenant, but don't push yourself too far." As the conflict raged on, Foster noticed the outer edges of their formation beginning to buckle under the relentless Kroloff assault. He quickly adjusted his strategy, ordering a controlled retreat of the damaged vessels while reorganizing the remaining ships to cover the gaps. "Captain," Security Chief Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos of the bridge. "The transmission from Kroloff space. It's genuine. And, sir, they've given us critical intel on the enemy flagship's defenses." Foster's mind raced, processing this new information. In a flash of inspiration, he saw a path to victory. Tactical, "I want our most agile and heavily armed ships assembled for a strike team. We're going after their flagship." As the strike team formed up, Foster laid out his plan. The Shadow Weaver would lead the charge, using its enhanced capabilities to clear a path through the Kroloff defenses. "All ships, this is Captain Foster," he broadcast to the strike team. "Our objective is the Kroloff flagship. We've identified a weakness in their shield generators. Hit it hard, hit it fast, and don't let up." The strike team surged forward, plunging into the heart of the Kroloff fleet. Foster watched as the Shadow Weaver danced through the enemy formation, its movements fluid and unpredictable. But even Billy's incredible skills couldn't prevent every hit, and Foster winced as he saw impacts registering on the ship's hull. The Kroloff, realizing the threat, redirected their most advanced ships to intercept the strike team. Strange energies crackled between the enemy vessels, creating spatial distortions that threatened to tear the Alliance ships apart. "All power to shields and engines," Foster ordered, his squeezing hard as he gripped his command chair. "Push through." The strike team accelerated to dangerous velocities, their ships groaning under the strain. Foster watched in horror as the Shadow Weaver took the brunt of the Kroloff counterattack. Its hull breached in multiple locations. But they were through. The Kroloff flagship loomed before them, its massive form jam-packed with weapons. "All ships, concentrate fire on these coordinates," Foster commanded, transmitting the location of the shield generator weakness. "Give it everything you've got." A storm of weapons fire converged on the designated point. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if the Kroloff defenses would hold. Then, with a brilliant flash, the flagship shields collapsed. "Again!" Foster shouted. "Target their vital systems." The strike team unleashed a relentless barrage, tearing into the exposed superstructure of the Kroloff vessel. Explosions blossomed across its surface as critical systems failed in rapid succession. As the Kroloff flagship began to break apart, Foster saw the rest of the enemy fleet falter. Without central coordination, their attacks became disjointed and ineffective. "Attention, Kroloff vessels," Foster broadcast on all frequencies. "Your flagship is destroyed. Stand down and prepare to be boarded, or face the same fate." He watched as, one by one, Kroloff ships began to power down their weapons. Not all complied, but enough to turn the tide decisively in the Alliance's favor. As the last pockets of resistance were mopped up, Foster turned his attention to the battered Shadow Weaver. "Get emergency crews over there now," he ordered, "and tell Dr. Hayes to prepare for casualties." The battle was won, but Foster knew the war was nowhere near the end. As he began coordinating rescue efforts and dealing with Kroloff prisoners, his mind was already racing ahead to the next challenge. The mysterious transmission from within Kroloff space had proven crucial to their victory. Now, they needed to find out who sent it and why. Foster looked out at the debris-strewn battlefield, the adrenaline of combat slowly fading. They had achieved the impossible today, but he knew that maintaining the fragile alliance between humans and Tholians would prove to be an even greater challenge. As the first reports of Allied casualties began to come in, Foster steeled himself for the difficult days ahead. Foster took a deep breath, steadying himself as the adrenaline of battle began to ebb. The immediate threat had passed, but the real work was just beginning. "Commander Reeves," he called out, turning to the newly arrived reinforcements. "I need your ships to establish a defensive perimeter around the battlefield. We can't risk a Kroloff counterattack catching us off guard." Reeves nodded, his holographic projection flickering slightly. "Understood, Captain. We'll have a screen up within the hour." Foster turned his attention to the tactical display, where dozens of escape pods and debris fields littered the area. "Initiate a comprehensive sweep for survivors," he ordered. "Both Alliance and Kroloff. We leave no one behind." As rescue operations got underway, Foster's gaze fell on the battered form of the Shadow Weaver. The ship's once sleek hull was now a patchwork of scorch marks and gaping breaches. "Thompson," Foster called out to his chief engineer, "I need that ship operational as soon as possible. Coordinate with the Tholian engineers. We'll need both our expertise to get her space-worthy again." Marcus Thompson's gruff voice came through the comms. "Aye, Captain. It won't be pretty, but we'll get it done." Foster's attention was drawn to a priority message from Dr. Hayes. "Captain, we've stabilized Lieutenant Clark, but his condition is still critical. I recommend immediate transfer to the medical frigate Mercy." "Make it happen, Doctor," Foster replied, a knot of worry forming in his stomach. "Keep me updated on his status." As the bridge bustled with activity, Foster noticed Admiral Zoexere's crystalline form pulsing with an intense light. "Captain," the Tholian's resonant voice cut through the noise, "we must not squander this victory. The Kroloff vessels we've captured could provide invaluable intelligence." Foster nodded in agreement. "Agreed, Admiral. I'm assigning Dr. Alara and Lyra to lead the analysis team. Their expertise with the anti-cloaking technology proves they're our best bet for reverse engineering Kroloff systems. He turned to his communications officer. Get me Security Chief Rodriguez. Moments later, Rodriguez's face appeared on screen. Sir, Michael, that transmission from Kroloff space, I need you to follow up on it. Assemble a covert team and see if you can make contact with this resistance movement. If it's genuine, it could be the key to ending this war. Rodriguez's eyes lit up at the challenge. I'm on it, Captain. We'll move fast and quiet. As Foster coordinated the myriad operations now underway, he received word that Admiral ZYXRA was calling for a strategy meeting aboard the flagship of the reinforcement fleet. Captain, the Tholian's voice resonated through the bridge. Your presence is required for tactical discussions. We must plan our next move while the Kroloff are in disarray. Foster acknowledged the summons, then turned to his first officer. Commander Chun, you have the bridge. Keep me informed of any developments. As Foster made his way to the shuttle bay, he was struck by the controlled chaos around him. Crew members rushed to and fro, carrying out their duties with a newfound sense of purpose and urgency. The short journey to the flagship gave Foster a moment to collect his thoughts. The victory had been hard-won, but he knew it was only the beginning. As he stepped onto the flagship's bridge, he was greeted by the sight of Admiral ZYXRA, Commander Reeves, and several other key Alliance leaders gathered around a large holographic display. Gentlemen, Foster said, joining the group, let's make this victory count. The strategy meeting was intense, with heated debates over the best course of action. Some argued for an immediate push into Kroloff territory, while others advocated for a more cautious approach. As the discussion raged on, Foster's attention was drawn to a flurry of incoming transmissions. Ambassador Marcus Hartley's voice cut through the chatter. Captain, we're receiving communiques from multiple neutral species in the sector. They're expressing interest in joining our alliance. Foster's eyes widened at the implications. This could change everything, he murmured. Raising his voice, he addressed the gathered leaders. Gentlemen, we have an opportunity here to expand our coalition. Ambassador Hartley, I want you to handle these negotiations personally. Tread carefully. We need allies, not fair-weather friends. As the meeting continued, reports began flooding in from the various teams Foster had deployed. Dr. Alara's preliminary analysis of Kroloff technology showed promising leads, while Rodriguez's covert team had made initial contact with what appeared to be genuine Kroloff dissidents. The logistical challenges of managing thousands of Kroloff prisoners soon became apparent. Foster implemented a tiered containment system, ensuring that high-value targets were isolated for intensive interrogation. Days passed in a blur of activity. The Alliance established a temporary base of operations in the system, converting captured Kroloff vessels into makeshift command centers and repair facilities. The Shadow Weaver, still undergoing extensive repairs, became a symbol of the Alliance's resilience and ingenuity. As Foster reviewed the latest reports in his makeshift office aboard the repurposed Kroloff vessel, an alert caught his attention. Long-range sensors had detected unusual energy signatures deep within Kroloff space. His mind raced with the possibilities. Could this be the source of the Kroloffa's advanced technology? A potential game-changer in the ongoing conflict? Foster leaned back in his chair, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. He knew that investigating these anomalies could be the key to turning the tide of the war once and for all. But it would also mean venturing into the heart of enemy territory, risking everything they had fought so hard to achieve. As he contemplated the challenges ahead, Foster's gaze fell on a hollow image of Earth, a reminder of what they were fighting for. With renewed commitment, he began formulating plans for a long-range reconnaissance mission. Whatever these energy signatures represented, he knew that uncovering their secrets could be the Alliance's best hope for lasting peace. The call to action came sooner than expected. As Foster prepared to brief his senior staff on the proposed mission, an urgent message flashed across his console. The energy signatures in Kroloff space had intensified, and new, unidentified vessels were emerging from the anomalies. Foster's eyes narrowed as he studied the incoming data. Whatever was happening in Kroloff space, it was clear that the next phase of the war was about to begin, and the Alliance would need to be ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Foster's mind raced with the possibilities and challenges that lay before them. Suddenly, the ship's AI interrupted his thoughts. "Captain, we're detecting unusual energy signatures deep within Kroloff space. The readings are unlike anything we've encountered before." Foster leaned forward, his attention fully focused on the holographic display. The anomalies pulsed with an eerie, rhythmic pattern that sent a chill down his spine. "Prepare the Shadow Weaver for immediate departure," Foster ordered, his voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. "We need to investigate these signatures ourselves." As the crew scrambled to ready the ship, Foster assembled his senior staff for a briefing. The newly repaired Shadow Weaver, now augmented with reverse-engineered Kroloff technology, would serve as their primary vessel for this high-risk mission. Chief Engineer Marcus Thompson approached, his face smeared with grease. "Captain, we've integrated the Tholian crystal matrices into the propulsion system. It should give us a significant boost in speed and maneuverability." Foster nodded approvingly. "Excellent work, Marcus. We'll need every advantage we can get." As they made final preparations, Foster was surprised to see Lieutenant Billy Clark stride onto the bridge, his movements fluid and purposeful. "Billy," Foster exclaimed, "I didn't expect to see you on your feet so soon." Clark's eyes gleamed with an intensity Foster hadn't seen before. "Dr. Hayes says my hybrid physiology has stabilized. I'm ready for duty, sir." Foster studied the young officer, noting the subtle changes in his appearance. Billy's skin had a faint iridescent sheen, and his eyes seemed to pulse with an inner light. "Very well, Lieutenant. Take your station," Foster said, unable to shake a feeling of both awe and unease at Clark's transformation. As the Shadow Weaver disengaged from the Alliance's forward operating base, a small escort of hybrid ships fell into formation around them. Foster watched through the view screen as they approached the edge of known space, the escort peeling away to maintain the defensive perimeter. The journey into Kroloff territory was fraught with danger. Automated defense systems and patrol vessels littered their path, but the Shadow Weaver's enhanced stealth capabilities, combined with Billy's near-telepathic control of the ship's systems, allowed them to slip through undetected. As they penetrated deeper into enemy space, the energy signatures grew stronger. Foster felt a mix of anticipation and dread as they approached their source. "Captain," Billy called out, his voice tinged with excitement, "I'm detecting a massive structure ahead. It's incredible." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a sprawling Kroloff installation nestled within a dense asteroid field. The facility pulsed with energy, its architecture a blend of organic forms and advanced technology. "Full sensor sweep," Foster ordered. "I want to know everything about that installation." As the crew worked to gather data, Foster observed the flurry of activity around the facility. Ships and personnel moved with purpose, their patterns suggesting a state of high alert. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're picking up a subspace transmission from a nearby moon. The encryption, it matches the Kroloff resistance movement." Foster's eyes narrowed as he considered their options. The mission parameters hadn't accounted for direct contact with the resistance, but the potential intelligence was too valuable to ignore. "Take us in," he decided. "Maintain stealth protocols and prepare for possible hostile contact." The Shadow Weaver glided silently to the moon's surface, touching down in a narrow canyon that shielded them from orbital scans. Foster led a small team to the coordinates of the transmission source, their environment suits allowing them to move swiftly across the barren lunar landscape. They found the entrance to the rebel outpost hidden beneath an outcropping of rock. As they approached, a hidden door slid open, revealing a group of Kroloth unlike any Foster had encountered before. The resistance leaders stepped forward, their bodies adorned with intricate markings that set them apart from their imperial counterparts. One of them, a tall, scarred individual, addressed Foster directly. "Captain," the Kroloth spoke, its voice a low rumble. "We've been expecting you. There's much we need to discuss, and time is short." Foster nodded, gesturing for his team to lower their weapons. As they entered the outpost, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to uncover secrets that would change the course of the war, and perhaps the fate of the entire sector. The Kroloth resistance leader, who introduced himself as Vextor, led them to a dimly lit chamber filled with holographic displays and strange, pulsating technology. "What you see in orbit," Vextor explained, gesturing to an image of the Kroloth installation, "is the culmination of decades of dangerous experimentation. Our leaders have become obsessed with harnessing energies that were never meant to be controlled." As Vextor spoke, the displays shifted to show schematics of weapons and propulsion systems far beyond anything the Alliance had encountered. Foster felt a chill run down his spine as he realized the true extent of the threat they faced. "We propose a joint operation," Vextor continued, his eyes locked on Foster's. "With your stealth technology and our inside knowledge, we can infiltrate the facility and sabotage their research. It could set back their war efforts by years." Foster's mind raced as he weighed the risks and potential benefits of such a mission. The intelligence they had gathered was already invaluable, but the opportunity to strike a decisive blow against the Kroloth war machine was tempting. Before he could respond, Billy's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting a massive buildup of Kroloth forces near the installation. It looks like they're preparing for a major offensive." Foster's expression hardened as he realized the gravity of their situation. They were deep in enemy territory, with a potential game-changing mission before them, but the window of opportunity was rapidly closing. As he opened his mouth to speak, alarms blared throughout the rebel outpost. Vextor's eyes widened in alarm as he checked a nearby console. "The Empire has detected anomalous readings in this sector," he growled. "They're dispatching investigation teams. We must act now, or risk losing everything." Foster's hand tightened on his weapon as he surveyed the room, taking in the determined faces of his crew and the desperate expressions of the Kroloth rebels. The next few moments would determine not just the outcome of their mission, but potentially the fate of the entire sector. With a deep breath, Foster made his decision. "All right," he said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "We proceed with the mission," Foster declared, his voice cutting through the tension. "The risk is high, but the potential payoff is too great to ignore." Vextor nodded, his scarred face etched with dogged tenacity. "We'll provide you with detailed schematics of the facility. It's your best chance at success." As the Kroloth resistance leader transferred the data, Foster tapped his comm badge. "Shadow Weaver, prepare for a high-risk infiltration operation. I need Lieutenant Clark and our 2 Tholian specialists ready for immediate deployment." Within minutes, Foster's strike team assembled in the rebel outpost's makeshift armory. They donned advanced stealth suits, their surfaces shimmering with adaptive camouflage. Chief Engineer Thompson's voice crackled over the comm as they performed final equipment checks. "Captain, I've outfitted you with prototype phase shift devices. They should allow you to pass through solid matter for brief periods. Use them sparingly. The power drain is immense." Foster acknowledged the warning as he studied the holographic display of the Kroloth facility. A rarely used maintenance access point glowed softly, their planned entry vector. "Remember," Foster addressed his team, "our primary objective is sabotage. We get in, plant the charges, and get out. Minimize engagement with enemy forces." They moved swiftly across the lunar surface, using natural formations for cover. As they approached the facility's outer perimeter, Billy's eyes pulsed with an eerie light. "I can sense the patrol patterns," he whispered, his hybrid physiology granting him unprecedented awareness. "There's a gap in their sensor coverage. Now!" The team sprinted forward, slipping through the brief window of opportunity. They reached the maintenance access point undetected, and Foster nodded to one of the Tholian specialists. With practiced efficiency, the alien bypassed the security systems, granting them entry. Inside, they navigated a labyrinth of corridors bathed in an unsettling purplish glow. Billy's enhanced abilities proved invaluable, allowing them to anticipate and avoid security sweeps with uncanny precision. As they penetrated deeper into the heart of the facility, the air grew thick with an otherworldly energy. They emerged onto a vast observation deck overlooking a colossal chamber. At its center pulsed a massive reactor, its core a swirling vortex of impossible colors. "That's it," Foster breathed, recognizing the source of the Krolotha's technological leap. "That's what's given them their edge." He turned to his team, gesturing to key structural points around the reactor. "Plant the charges at these locations. They'll destabilize the containment field without triggering a full meltdown." As the Tholian specialists moved to execute the sabotage plan, Foster tapped Billy on the shoulder. "Create a diversion, something to keep their systems occupied while we work." Billy nodded, his eyes unfocusing slightly as he interfaced with the facility's computer network. Alarms began blaring in distant sections of the complex, drawing security forces away from their position. Foster and the Tholians worked swiftly, placing the specialized explosive charges developed by Chief Thompson. Each device was a marvel of engineering, designed to exploit weaknesses in the reactor's containment systems. As they planted the final charge, a piercing alarm cut through the air. Foster's blood ran cold as he realized their presence had been detected. "Evacuation Plan Alpha," he shouted, leading his team toward their designated escape route. The facility around them erupted into chaos as Kroloth security forces mobilized to intercept the intruders. They raced through corridors now swarming with guards, relying on their phase-shift devices to pass through walls and barriers. Billy's hybrid abilities allowed him to manipulate the facility's systems on the fly, sealing off paths behind them and trapping pursuing Kroloth forces. As they neared their exit point, they encountered a heavily armed Kroloth security detail. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as both sides exchanged fire. Foster and his team used their advanced weaponry and tactical training to great effect, slowly pushing back the numerically superior enemy force. In the heat of battle, one of the Tholian specialists took a direct hit to the chest. The alien crumpled to the ground, its crystalline body crackling with residual energy. "Cover me," Foster shouted, rushing to the fallen Tholian. He hoisted the injured specialist over his shoulder, grunting under the unexpected weight. With their wounded comrade slowing them down, the team fought their way to the extraction point with renewed desperation. The Shadow Weaver, cloaked and waiting in low orbit, responded instantly to Foster's emergency signal. As the ship's transport beam locked onto the team, the first of the planted charges detonated. The facility shuddered around them, alarms blaring as cascading failures ripped through its systems. In a shimmer of energy, Foster and his team materialized on the Shadow Weaver's transporter pad. "Get us out of here. Maximum speed," Foster ordered as he rushed the injured Tholian to sickbay. The ship accelerated away from the Kroloth installation, which was now engulfed in a series of spectacular explosions. On the bridge, long-range sensors detected massive disruptions rippling through the enemy's power grid across multiple star systems. Foster allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction before turning his attention to their escape. "Send an encrypted transmission to Alliance headquarters," he commanded. "Inform them of our successful mission and request immediate medical assistance for our injured specialist." As the Shadow Weaver pushed its engines to the limit, racing back towards friendly space, Foster knew their ordeal was a long way to go. The Kroloth, enraged by the destruction of their prized research facility, would stop at nothing to hunt them down. All hands battle stations, Foster announced ship-wide. We've struck a critical blow, but now we need to make it count. Every second of our lead matters. Let's show them what this ship can do. The Shadow Weaver surged forward, its newly augmented engines straining as they fled the gathering storm of Kroloth vengeance. Foster gripped the arms of his command chair, his mind already racing with plans to safeguard their hard-won intelligence and outmaneuver the enemy forces undoubtedly mobilizing to intercept them. The Shadow Weaver surged forward, its newly augmented engines straining as they fled the gathering storm of Kroloth vengeance. Foster gripped the arms of his command chair, his mind already racing with plans to safeguard their hard-won intelligence and outmaneuver the enemy forces undoubtedly mobilizing to intercept them. Helm, evasive pattern Delta 6, Foster ordered, his voice steady despite the tension that crackled through the bridge. Lieutenant Clark, I need you to push our sensor capabilities to the limit. Give me every scrap of data on incoming pursuit vectors. Billy's eyes pulsed with an otherworldly light as he interfaced directly with the ship's systems. Multiple Kroloth signatures detected, Captain. 3. No! For battlecruisers on an intercept course. Foster's heart made. Thompson, what's the status of our engines? The chief engineer's voice crackled over the comm, strained but determined. We're redlining the plasma injectors, Captain. I bypassed some safety protocols, but I can't guarantee how long they'll hold. Understood. Keep them running, whatever it takes. The ship bucked and shuddered as it dove into a dense asteroid field. Massive chunks of space, rock, loomed in the view screen, spinning lazily in the void. Foster watched as his helmswoman expertly threaded the needle between the cosmic debris, each near miss causing his heart to skip a beat. For a moment, it seemed their daring maneuver had bought them some breathing room. Then, a proximity alarm blared. Kroloth battlecruiser, dead astern, Billy shouted. They're launching high-yield torpedoes. Foster's mind raced through tactical options. Disperse sensor chaff. Helm, prepare for random micro-jumps on my mark. The Shadow Weaver's aft section lit up with a brilliant display of false sensor readings, momentarily confusing the incoming projectiles. But the Kroloth weren't so easily fooled. A violent tremor rocked the ship as multiple torpedoes found their mark. Sparks erupted from consoles across the bridge, and the acrid smell of burning circuitry filled the air. Damage report, Foster demanded, steadying himself against his chair. The tactical officer's voice was grim. Direct hits to decks 5 through 8. Hull breaches in sections 31 and 42. Life support failing in multiple compartments. Foster tapped his comm badge. Thompson, I need those breaches sealed yesterday. Reroute power from non-essential systems if you have to. Aye, Captain, Thompson replied, his voice barely audible over the chaos in engineering. I'm dispatching repair teams now. We're going to have to get creative with this one. The ship lurched again as another volley of Kroloth weapons fire found its target. Foster watched in horror as a massive crack spread across the main view screen, a stark reminder of their increasingly desperate situation. Medical bay to bridge. Dr. Hayes' voice cut through the din of battle stations. Captain, the Tholian specialist's condition is critical. I'm doing everything I can, but our standard procedures aren't designed for their physiology. Foster nodded grimly, though the doctor couldn't see him. Do what you can, Jonathan. We can't afford to lose them. As the Shadow Weaver continued its frantic escape, Billy's hybrid abilities proved invaluable. His enhanced perception allowed him to process vast amounts of sensor data in real time, anticipating the Kroloth's moves before they made them. Captain, Billy called out, his voice tinged with urgency. I'm detecting a massive energy buildup in the lead Kroloth vessel. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. Foster's blood ran cold. Evasive maneuvers, maximum thrust. But it was too late. A blinding beam of exotic particles lanced out from the Kroloff battlecruiser, cutting through space like a scythe. It struck the Shadow Weaver's already weakened defenses, tearing through multiple decks with terrifying ease. The bridge erupted into chaos. Emergency klaxons wailed as reports of catastrophic damage flooded in from all sections of the ship. Foster knew they were out of options. With a heavy heart, he opened a ship-wide channel. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for immediate evacuation. Non-essential personnel, proceed to your designated escape pods. This is not a drill." As the crew scrambled to gather critical data and evacuate, Foster turned to Billy. "Lieutenant, I need you to divert all remaining power to the experimental phase shift drive." Billy's eyes widened. "Sir, that technology is untested. We have no idea what could happen." "It's our only chance," Foster replied, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Make it happen." As Billy worked feverishly to power up the phase shift drive, the ship groaned and buckled around them. In the medical bay, Dr. Hayes watched in awe as the injured Tholian specialist used the last of its strength to stabilize the energy fluctuations threatening to tear the Shadow Weaver apart. Foster's hand hovered over the activation switch, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. With one final look at his battered but determined crew, he pressed a button. The Shadow Weaver shuddered violently as reality itself seemed to warp around it. A blinding flash of energy engulfed the ship, and for a moment, everything went silent. When the light faded, Foster found himself staring at an unfamiliar starfield. The Kroloff battlecruisers were nowhere to be seen. They had escaped, but at what cost? As emergency power flickered on and damage reports began to trickle in, Foster surveyed his bridge. The crew, though battered and exhausted, were alive. But the real challenge was just beginning. "Status report," Foster called out, his voice hoarse. "Where are we? And what's left of my ship?" "Ship?" The bridge crew worked feverishly to assess their situation. Consoles flickered to life, casting an eerie glow across the smoke-filled command center. Foster's eyes darted from station to station, taking in the grim reality of their predicament. "Sir," Lieutenant Clark reported, his voice strained, "long-range sensors are offline. I can't determine our exact location, but we're definitely far from any charted space." Chief Engineer Thompson's voice crackled over the comm, heavy with fatigue and worry. "Captain, we've got multiple hull breaches sealed, but life support is failing across several decks. We're running on emergency power, and it won't last long." Foster nodded grimly, his mind racing through their limited options. "Prioritize life support and essential systems. We need to buy ourselves time to figure out where we are and how to get back." As the crew scrambled to stabilize the ship, Dr. Hayes emerged from the turbolift, his medical uniform stained with crystalline residue. "Captain, the Tholian specialist. She didn't make it. Her last act was to stabilize our power core during the phase shift." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Foster closed his eyes for a moment, honoring their fallen comrade. When he opened them, his gaze was steel. "Her sacrifice won't be in vain. We're going to get this ship and crew home." Over the next few hours, the Shadow Weaver drifted through the void, its crew working tirelessly to keep the battered vessel functioning. Foster made his way through the ship, offering encouragement and lending a hand where needed. In engineering, he found Chief Thompson and Dr. Alera, the surviving Tholian scientist, working side by side to repair a critical power relay. "How's it coming?" Foster asked, noting the unusual sight of the crystalline alien working so closely with his human engineer. Thompson wiped sweat from his brow. "Slow going, Captain. But Dr. Alera here has some fascinating insights into our power systems. Never thought I'd say this, but we make a good team. Dr. Alara's crystalline form shimmered as she turned to Foster. Your crew's ingenuity is unexpected. Perhaps I misjudge humans' capabilities. Foster allowed himself a small smile. We're full of surprises, Doctor. Keep up the good work. As he made his way back to the bridge, an urgent call came through his comm badge. Captain, Billy's voice was filled with excitement. I've detected something. You need to see this. Foster quickened his pace, arriving on the bridge to find Billy hunched over his console, his hybrid eyes pulsing with an otherworldly light. What have you got, Lieutenant? A subspace beacon, sir, Billy reported, his fingers dancing across the controls. It's faint, barely there, but it's definitely artificial. And, sir, there's something familiar about its signature. Foster leaned in, studying the readings. Can you pinpoint its location? Billy nodded. It's about 2 light years from our current position. But, sir, with our current power levels, reaching it will be a challenge. Foster straightened, his decision already made. It's the only lead we've got. Helm, set a course for that beacon. Thompson, he called over the comm, we're going to need everything you can give us from those engines. As the Shadow Weaver limped towards a mysterious signal, the crew worked around the clock to keep the ship functioning. Dr. Alara found herself working more closely with the humans, her initial disdain slowly giving way to grudging respect as she witnessed their dedication and resourcefulness firsthand. Days passed in a blur of constant repairs and power management. Foster barely slept, dividing his time between the bridge and engineering, pushing himself and his crew to their limits. Finally, as their power reserves dwindled to critical levels, a massive structure appeared on their view screen. My God, Foster breathed, staring at the sight before them. What is that? The object was an enormous space station, its architecture unlike anything they had ever seen. It seemed to be a blend of various technological styles, with sections that looked eerily familiar to both human and Tholian designs. Sir, Billy reported, his voice filled with awe, I'm detecting automated systems activating on the station. They're sending out docking instructions. Foster gripped the arms of his command chair, weighing their options. With the Shadow Weaver on its last legs, they had little choice. Take us in, Helm. Slowly. All hands. Prepare for potential first contact scenarios. As they approached the massive structure, mechanical arms extended from its surface, gently guiding the battered ship into a docking bay. The moment they were secure, the station systems began interfacing with the Shadow Weaver, initiating repair protocols. Captain, Thompson's voice came over the comm, a note of disbelief in his tone. You're not going to believe this, but the station is repairing our ship. And, sir, it's doing it faster and more efficiently than anything I've ever seen. Foster turned to Dr. Alara, who was studying the station's schematics with intense interest. Doctor, any insights? The Tholian scientist's crystalline form shimmered as she spoke. This technology, it's beyond anything in current Tholian or human science. But there are elements here that seem familiar, almost as if it was designed for both our species, Foster finished, the implications sending his mind blown. As the Shadow Weaver underwent its miraculous repair, Foster assembled a team to explore the station. With Billy's hybrid abilities to interface with the station's systems and Dr. Alara's expertise, they began to uncover the secrets of this ancient marvel. In the heart of the station, they discovered a vast computer core, filled with data beyond their wildest imaginations. As Billy and Dr. Alara worked to access its contents, Foster couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of something monumental. Suddenly, Billy's eyes widened, pulsing with intense light. Captain, he gasped, you need to see this. It's a historical database, and it's incredible. As the information began to flow across their screens, the team stood in stunned silence. They were looking at records of a long-lost civilization, one that had achieved what had seemed impossible. A harmonious alliance between humans, Tholians, and countless other species. Dr. Alara's crystalline form trembled as she absorbed the information. "This can't be," she whispered, her voice filled with a mix of disbelief and wonder. "Our peoples, working together, achieving greatness beyond measure." Foster was about to respond when a priority alert flashed across the main console. His heart raced as he read the report. "Multiple ships incoming," he announced, his voice tense. "Both Alliance and Kroloff signatures." As the crew of the Shadow Weaver braced for a potential last stand, Foster couldn't help but glance at the historical records still displayed on the screen. The image of humans and Tholians standing side by side, part of something greater than themselves, burned itself into his mind. With a deep breath, he turned to his crew. "Battle stations," he ordered, his voice steady despite the uncertainty that gripped them all. "Whatever happens next, we face it together."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.